Good evening, and welcome to the latest happenings inside our federal machine.
Here we go. It's Wednesday, November 19th, 2025. This is Spathon ushering in another episode of The Swamp, and it's a busy one tonight. The bill to release the Epstein files has passed the Senate unanimously and heads to the Oval Office for Trump's signature. Democrat Congresswoman Sheila McCormick has been formally indicted by the Department of Justice for conspiring to steal $5 million in FEMA funds and routing the money through multiple accounts to disguise its source. House Representative Ralph Norman filed a resolution to censure Rep Stacy Plaskett over her text communication with Jeffrey Epstein during a committee hearing, and the resolution was rejected. 3 Republicans voted nay, which were Representatives Don Bacon and Rep Lance Gooden and Rep David Joyce, all Republicans, and the final vote tally was 209 yeas and 214 nays. And there were also 3 present who didn't vote, also Republican. And speaking of the censure of Stacy Plaskett, Representative Nancy Mace announced she will be moving to censure Rep Corey Mills over accusations that he engaged in backroom deals that ended the censures of both Rep Ilhan Omar and Rep Stacy Plaskett. Judge Jerry Smith, a dissenting judge from the hearing which ordered a stop to the Texas redistricting map, wrote his dissent on the case, blasting Judge Jeffrey Brown, accusing him of misconduct and scoring favoritism from the likes of George Soros and Gavin Newsom. The state of Texas is appealing to the Supreme Court. A lot of federal law enforcement agencies are blasting a Canadian drug lord by the name of Ryan Wedding, who is also a former Olympic athlete. The FBI has increased the reward for his capture to $15 million, as well as a $2 million bounty for a number of his associates. And Democrat Rep Jasmine Crockett is making a fool out of herself for accusing the EPA's Lee Zeldin of receiving donations from Jeffrey Epstein while he was a House representative, which Lee Zeldin did receive a campaign donation from a Dr. Jeffrey Epstein in 2020 after the sex offender Jeffrey Epstein's death in 2019. Clearly different people. And there's a lot more to dig into, so we're just gonna dive right in. And if you enjoyed the video, please give the video a quick like and subscribe to the channel if you enjoy the daily updates, and I might read your comment on the next episode if you decide to drop one. And every article you'll see in the video will be linked in the description below. And also, if there's any government department or office or agency, official, or any kind of entity that you notice that I haven't been covering on The Swamp, just let me know in the comments and I'll add it to the list. And we've got this from Breaking 911. The Epstein Files bill has been unanimously approved by the Senate, and it's now officially headed to President Trump's desk.
On the previous order, the Senate having received from the House H.R. 4405, the Senate will proceed to consideration of the bill, which the clerk will report.
H.R. 4405, an act to require the Attorney General to release all documents and records in possession of the Department of Justice relating to Jeffrey Epstein and for other purposes.
On the previous order, the bill is considered read 3 times and passed, and the motion to reconsider is considered, made, and laid on the table.
All right, let's go, man. The bill was passed, heading to Trump for his signature. I'm sure it's probably getting signed, if not have been signed already as of this recording. I'm recording a little bit after 9 o'clock p.m. Eastern on Wednesday, of course. So he may have already signed it for all I know, but I did do one quick last look of everything happening, and I didn't see anything. So maybe he hadn't signed it yet. Not 100% for sure on that, but I'm sure he's going to sign it very quickly so we can move on with what really matters, which is kind of ironic because with this whole Epstein Files scandal that's been going on, I haven't really heard any Republicans at all that's been caught up in the Jeffrey Epstein scandal, but I've heard quite a few Democrats who have so far. Okay, so moving on to FBI Director Kash Patel. This individual and her family allegedly stole money from FEMA. So let me get back to him. This is from Bill Malugin. Breaking: DOJ charges Congresswoman Sheila McCormick, Democrat from Florida, with stealing $5 million in FEMA funds and also laundering the proceeds and then using the money to support her 2021 congressional campaign. She faces up to 53 years in prison if she's convicted. According to the indictment, the DOJ says the following. Sheila McCormick, 46, and her brother Edwin Sheila, 51, both of Miramar, worked through their family healthcare company on a FEMA-funded COVID-19 vaccination staffing contract in 2021. In July of 21, the company received an overpayment of $5 million in FEMA funds. The indictment alleges that the defendants conspired to steal that $5 million and routed it through multiple accounts to disguise its source. Prosecutors allege that a substantial portion of the misappropriated funds was used as candidate contributions to Sheila McCormick's 2021 congressional campaign and for the personal benefit of the defendants. The indictment further alleges that Sheila McCormick and Nadej LeBlanc, age 46 of Miramar, arranged additional contributions using straw donors, funneling other monies from the FEMA-funded COVID-19 contract to friends and relatives who then donated to the campaign as if using their own money. The indictment also charges Sheila McCormick and her 2021 tax preparer, David K. Spencer, age 41 of Davie, with conspiring to file a false federal tax return. According to the indictment, they falsely claimed political spending and other personal expenses as business deductions and inflated charitable contributions in order to reduce her tax obligations. Dude, if she ends up getting convicted of this, she is fucked. She is in some deep shit, man. I don't even want to begin to count the number of felonies that she's probably facing from this. It's got to be in the dozens for sure. And you know what? If Democrats completely ruled the show, let's say that Republicans just disappear from existence, Democrats have a supermajority from here on out. They have a supermajority in the Supreme Court and the whole 9 yards. Would it surprise anybody if this were like just running rampant all throughout the federal government if they ran the show? I don't think anybody would be in any way surprised whatsoever if that's the case, because I'm not saying that Republicans are squeaky clean. They got a history of quite a few people engaging in funny business too. But dude, like something this blatant, thinking that she wouldn't get caught, especially laundering the money. Oh my God, dude, she's facing some serious time. I mean, like I said, 53 years in prison if convicted. I'm surprised that's all. So anyway, that's happening. So let's get the response from FBI Director Patel. So this individual and her family allegedly stole money from FEMA and then laundered it through friends toward her own personal benefits, including her campaign accounts. Today, the FBI and partners at the Justice Department took action. No one is above the law. Absolutely freaking wild. Absolutely wild. Just the nerve, man. Just the nerve of them. I mean, God forbid you actually just represent your constituency and do the best job you can, uphold the Constitution, not only to the best of your abilities, but uphold the Constitution absolutely. And if you can't, then step down. You don't have to be an elected representative. You're not supposed to be doing this for the money anyway. All right, anyway, so this is from yours truly. House rejects the censure of Delegate Stacy Plaskett over Epstein texts. The House defeated Resolution 888, introduced by Rep. Ralph Norman, Republican of South Carolina, which sought to censure Delegate Stacy Plaskett and remove her from the Intelligence Committee due to her 2019 text exchanges with Epstein, her constituent, during a Michael Cohen hearing. The vote failed 209 to 214 after 3 Republicans joined Democrats in opposition. The text revealed in recent Epstein estate documents involved Epstein suggesting questions to challenge Michael Cohen's testimony. Plaskett defended the outreach as a constituent engagement on local issues amid her anti-trafficking efforts, while critics decried it as a betrayal of trust. Unreal. And this is from Rep. Marjorie Taylor Greene. Yesterday, after 5 ridiculous months of fighting the White House and the Speaker to get Congress to finally vote to release the Epstein files, a deal was made to stop the censure of Stacy Plaskett, a Democrat delegate from the territory of the U.S. Virgin Islands, which would have also kicked her off the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence that oversees U.S. intelligence activities for texting with Epstein during an oversight committee hearing in 2019. You can't make this shit up. But they got her on camera. I mean, they've got her actions on camera. They don't have her actually like texting him zoomed in on the screen of her phone. They don't have it, that much on camera, but they've actually zoomed in on her, obviously paying attention to her phone, sending messages back and forth to some individual, which we ended up finding out is Jeffrey Epstein himself. Absolutely crazy. And it was during a hearing where she was asking Michael Cohen questions about Jeffrey Epstein. Absolutely crazy. I mean, if that doesn't get you censured from Congress, I don't know what would. Absolutely nothing, it would seem. All right, so Plaskett texted with Epstein as he advised her questions during the Michael Cohen hearing, knowing his convictions and record of R-word and trafficking girls and women. This was the reason for last night's censure resolution vote. What was the deal that was made? 3 Republicans crossed the aisle and voted with Democrats to stop the Plaskett censure resolution in a swap so that Democrats would not bring up the Corey Mills censure resolution for alleged physical assaults and threatening to release P-word on an ex-girlfriend and ethics violations and questionable military record. You, the American people, should be outraged by this against both parties. So I don't understand why then Corey Mills, why didn't he also vote to or vote nay to not censure Rep Plaskett, because he wasn't one of the 3 Republicans who voted not to. So I don't know, maybe there's a good reason for that. Maybe because, like just more fingers would be pointed toward his direction, and I don't know. But anyway, Marjorie Taylor Greene is clearly very pissed off about this. And you should be asking many questions. For example, why does Plaskett, who is a non-voting delegate from a U.S. territory, serve on the House Intelligence Committee, Ways and Means and Budget Committee? I asked that the other day, and I was surprised. I didn't know that a delegate who, they vote for her from the Virgin Islands to represent them in Congress, but she can't vote on any legislation because the Virgin Islands is not a U.S. state. It's just a territory. So I thought it was basically just a ceremonial role where the delegates from Puerto Rico and from Guam and the Virgin Islands and I know I'm forgetting one. Marshall Islands, isn't that the other one? I don't know, whatever. So I'm really surprised that they have the ability to get on actual committees, even though they can't vote on any legislation. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. So anyway, those are very powerful, influential committees, and she can't even vote on the House floor. And Corey Mills serves on the House Armed Services Committee, Foreign Affairs, and subcommittees on intelligence. So why did both sides work together to stop both Plaskett and Mills' censure resolutions last night in order to protect both Plaskett and Mills? Members of Congress like me never ever received such protection and never will. Instead of working to pass legislation that supports policies you voted for, passing our appropriations bills, and solving real crisis issues like healthcare, Congress is trapped in the quicksand of the swamp with no intention of getting out. And yeah, I think she's absolutely correct on this. It's absolutely ridiculous. And if those 3 Republicans, if they just stuck with their party and they voted to censure her, she would have been censured. I mean, that's how close they were. I think even if only 2, but they needed 3 to get it over the finish line, so they got 3. So anyway, I guess we'll just move on from that. Let me see. Okay, so from Nick Sordor, actually, we're not moving on just yet. We got this from Nick Sordor. Just in, Rep Nancy Mace, Republican South Carolina, will be moving to censure Rep Corey Mills today, per reports. Several Republican members are livid over alleged backroom deals that killed the censures of Ilhan, Omar, and Stacy Plaskett in order to protect Mills from investigation. So Marjorie Taylor Greene's post was 12 hours ago. Nick Sordor's was 11 hours ago. So I'm not sure if they actually did vote. I didn't see anything with regard to them actually voting whether or not to censure Corey Mills. So I don't believe that this has happened yet, but at the very least, I'll keep my eye on it, and definitely I'll update that tomorrow if they haven't yet, or even if they have. If they have, then I'll definitely talk about it tomorrow. So this is from Rep Nancy Mace herself. If you thought we were done with the letter to strip Corey Mills from his committees, think again. We're offering a privileged motion to censure Rep Corey Mills. When you're accused of assaulting women, profiting off federal contracts from your congressional seat, and inflating your military record, you have no business shaping America's defense policy. This isn't about party lines. It's about integrity. No more hiding behind the establishment to protect abusers and grifters. This is swamp behavior at its worst. Man, dude, they shouted out the show twice already. At the very beginning of the show, we already got swamp mentioned twice. But it's very real. That's why I called the show the swamp, because it is a swamp. Okay, so moving to Rep Anna Paulina Luna. I think this is the last one that we have with regard to this. So turn your comments on, Mills. You're saying there are no backroom deals. This is the second censure you've been wrapped up in, and once again, it was dropped, followed by a pressure campaign demanding members stop talking about it. I wonder why. Very interesting. You should also apologize. A referral to the Ethics Committee is where things go to die. The Republican Party does not support this kind of behavior, nor should we be silenced for calling it out. Stop bullshitting the American people and Florida residents. Get your crap together, not in Congress. And Anna Paulina Luna, she represents the district in St. Petersburg, which is my district. And so, I mean, she has like a more of a say than most, just because Mills, or not Mills, but Plaskett, no, not Plaskett. Who was it? I can't remember. I just mentioned one of them who's from Florida. Oh, wait a minute. Hold on. Never mind. That's in regard to Sheila McCormick. She's the rep in Florida I was thinking about. Okay, so forget that. Forget that last part. But still, she's a rep in Congress, and she's my rep. So there you go. That's why I decided to go with her post and not somebody else's. But all right, so let me see. So I got the rest of that. Yeah, so this is from Rep Corey Mills, and he posted this 6 hours ago. Yesterday, along with most of my colleagues, I voted to censure Democrat delegate Stacy Plaskett for being coached by Jeffrey Epstein through text messages during an anti-Trump committee hearing. So this is why he voted to censure, because if he voted not to, then it would give the argument that everyone else is making a lot more weight. But he could come back and say, well, I voted to censure her. What are you talking about? Backroom deals. I voted to censure her. I wanted her to be censured. You see my vote right there? So I see what he's doing. So no wonder he didn't vote no. Her conduct was unethical and warranted censure. I believe every one of my colleagues should have voted to censure her, and those who didn't should be confronted individually. Well, I think they will, and they're probably going to be heavily pressured to spill the beans and see if your name is wrapped up in it or not, which of course they're not going to. They're not going to rat on him. I'm sure they're not. Anyway, it has been made obvious to me that in recent months, Democrats have been using me as a political pawn. So with full transparency, my team and I fully expected that a vote to censure me would be brought to the floor yesterday. We prepared for it, but it never came, which surprised us just as much as anyone else. And let me be perfectly clear, there was no backroom deal, no negotiation, and no quid pro quo of any kind that would have forced the Democrats to stand down on that vote against me. Anyone pushing that narrative is just wrong. Okay, fine, you didn't literally have a backroom vote or a backroom discussion, backroom deal. No, but you probably did on some, I don't know, like some anonymous messaging app, maybe like through Telegram or some secret Discord or something. Who knows? But maybe not literally in a back room. You know how politicians like to, play around with their word games. So my focus is to defend America, Americans, and American interests remains unchanged. I did not and will not compromise my vote or my integrity to submit to the left's political games. So I don't know, man. It's either he said or she said. Depends on which side that you want to believe. I'm not so sure. I'm just here to talk about it. Just here to bring it up. And this is from the GOP, Jeffrey Epstein, as well as Stacy Plaskett. Is this a real image, GOP? Or is this, is it AI? Is it Photoshopped? I mean, I'm not so sure. Jeffrey Epstein, I don't know, man. I think if I had to put my money on it, it might be AI. I don't know, though. I wouldn't think the GOP would AI that, though, but I don't know. What do I know? So this actually comes from RNC Research, which was what they were replying to. So Stacy Plaskett says she was texting with Epstein in a 2019 congressional hearing because he was just a constituent with concerns. Plaskett, but like many constituents, they text you about issues. CNN, you initiated the text exchange. He was a known sex offender. So hold on. I think I have the same one. Yeah, I have the same one. This one's a little bit longer. So I'm not sure what they cut 10 seconds out of that for some reason. So I'll just go with breaking 911. So it's the same interview. So let's play this.
I believe that Jeffrey Epstein had information and I was going to get information to get at the truth. Having a real friendship with him is not something that I would deem to have. So I'm just looking forward. I'm moving forward. And I think that that's what we as American people should do, is move forward. If individuals are not involved in illegal activity,
please let me move forward.
Extending his criminal enterprise or his financial enterprise or all of those things, I think that we need to look at what people are doing.
Dude, he wasn't just a constituent that she was answering questions for. I mean, look, even if he's like an ultra wealthy constituent, yeah, fine, whatever. But this is different because the guy, she was sitting in a committee hearing and she was posing questions to the man sitting in the hot seat, Michael Cohen, and she was directly asking him questions about Jeffrey Epstein at the exact same time, or at least in the exact same session where she was texting with Jeffrey Epstein. He wasn't just some random constituent. He was the subject of the conversation. He was the absolute subject of the whole reason that they were in this committee hearing in the first place.
Moving forward.
Wait, let me just better understand that. What is that point? Because at the time he was a known sex offender and it had been detailed all the sexual abuse.
There are a lot of people who have done a lot of crimes, and as a prosecutor, you get information from people where you can. I believe that Jeffrey...
Dude, like, it's like time and time again, man, Democrats are all wrapped up in Jeffrey Epstein. Republicans aren't. They're all Democrats that are wrapped up in all this shit, which is hilarious that they keep demanding the release of the Epstein files. Okay, well, the more that gets released, or at least the more people dig through, the more damning it looks to Democrats, not Republicans. Everybody's been saying that for forever at this point. All right, so let's move on to Attorney General Pamela Bondi. Couldn't have said it better myself. So this is regarding the Texas redistricting case. Quote, the main winners from Judge Brown's opinion are George Soros and Gavin Newsom. The obvious losers are the people of Texas and the rule of law, which is what Judge Jerry Smith says. Says he pulls no punches, accusing Judge Brown of misconduct in enjoining Texas's map. His full preliminary statement is below. So let's look through this, shall we? So the dissent from the memorandum opinion in order granting preliminary injunction. Jerry E. Smith, circuit judge, dissenting. And it says, quote, fasten your seatbelts. It's going to be a bumpy night, end quote. I dissent from the entirety of Judge Brown's opinion granting a preliminary injunction. And here's his statement. I append this preliminary statement to dispel any suspicion that I'm responsible for any delay in issuing the preliminary injunction or that I am or saw slow-walking the ruling. I also need to highlight the pernicious judicial misbehavior of U.S. District Judge Jeffrey Vincent Brown. In my 37 years on the federal bench, this is the most outrageous conduct by a judge that I have ever encountered in a case in which I have been involved. I mean, that's a pretty heavy statement. In summary, Judge Brown has issued a 160-page opinion without giving me any reasonable opportunity to respond. I will set forth the details. The readers can judge for themselves. This 3-judge district court held a 9-day evidentiary hearing/trial on the motion for preliminary injunction. That hearing was concluded Friday, October 10th. The judges immediately retired to confer. Judges Brown and Gooden voted to grant the preliminary injunction. I voted to deny. It was understood that the majority judges would begin putting together an opinion. During the next 26 days, there was silence. Silence, nary a word from either judge. On Wednesday, November 5th, Judge Brown sent me a 13-page outline of the expected majority opinion, quote, so that you and your chambers might be able to begin preparing your dissenting opinion, end quote. Nothing else for an entire week. On Wednesday, November 12th, Judge Brown sent a message stating, quote, we currently anticipate issuing our injunction on Saturday, November 15th. We will endeavor to get you a draft before we issue it. Sadly, we do not believe we can wait for a dissenting opinion before we rule. The fuse is simply too short in light of Purcell. We will, however, note on the opinion that you are dissenting. We are not trying to cut you out. We just don't have the time. Ideally, of course, we'd liked to have seen your dissent before we issue our opinion, but that will also be impossible. So basically they're saying, we don't give a fuck what you say. We're just going to vote to deny it anyway because, you know, we're partisan, we're leftist activist judges now. So he goes on to say, yes, you heard it right. To summarize, in case the reader doesn't get the point, Judge Brown was announcing that he would issue an opinion 3 days later, an opinion that I hadn't even seen and might not be furnished before its issuance. That is unthinkable, but it occurred and not accidentally. I mean, it just makes you wonder if somehow that could lead their ruling to be somehow overturned or whatever. But regardless, the state of Texas has taken this all up to the Supreme Court, so I'm sure they're gonna weigh in on this as well. So he goes on to say, a day later at 10:31 p.m. Thursday, November 13th, Judge Brown sent a message stating, quote, I've attached a complete draft of our memorandum opinion in order granting the injunction. We still have revisions to make, but we wanted to get this to you to assist in the preparation of your dissent, end quote. The draft was 168 pages with 655 footnotes and departed noticeably from the outline I had received. Again, this was the very first actual opinion draft that I had been allowed to see, 5 calendar days before the actual opinion was sprung. And I was out of town on Thursday and Friday, November 13th and 14th, to attend the funeral of, coincidentally, a district judge of the Western District of Texas, having driven all day Thursday. In my absence, my staff continued working. I drove back home Friday, arriving after midnight so that my staff and I could spend all day Saturday and Sunday working on the dissent. Early Sunday morning, November 16th, Judge Brown sent a message stating, quote, "I've attached a newly revised draft of our majority opinion. We're still making revisions, but this is pretty close to the final version. We are now intending/hoping to issue it on Tuesday, November 18th, end quote. That second draft was 161 pages and contained some substantial revisions from the first, from November 13th draft. I replied that I had been out of town, was writing the dissent all weekend, and would be on the road all of the next day, which was Monday, to attend graveside services for the deceased federal judge. I said Judge Brown had no business issuing an opinion as soon as Tuesday. At 11:27 a.m. Tuesday, November 18th, Judge Brown wrote the following, quote, "I've attached a final version. We still intend to issue it today. I'm sorry that we can't wait for your dissent. Purcell compels us to get the ruling out as soon as we possibly can. It turns out that's today," end quote. That third version, 160 pages, was issued a few minutes later with a small number of additional changes and was signed, quote, "so ordered and signed on Galveston Island this 18th day of November 2025, end quote. This outrage speaks for itself. Any pretense of judicial restraint, good faith, or trust by these two judges is gone. If these judges were so sure of their result, they would not have been so unfairly eager to issue the opinion sans my dissent, or they could have waited for the dissent in order to join issue with it. What indeed are they afraid of? Judges on multi-judge courts understand how important is the deliberative process to fair and accurate judicial decision-making. As I say later in this dissent, judges get paid to disagree as well as to find common ground. Judges in the majority don't get to tell a dissenting judge or judges that they can't participate. If the two judges on this panel get away with what they have done, it sets a horrendous precedent that, quote, quote, might makes right, end quote, and the end justifies the means. The majority might even say, quote, "we don't need to wait for your dissent and wouldn't read it if we did," end quote. Here, that sort of happened. The entry on the district court docket brings up only Judge Brown's opinion. The reader has no access to this dissent without opening a separate non-consecutive docket entry. So this majority has, quote unquote, won in terms of diminishing the impact of the dissent and the public's access to it. In the interest of justice, one can hope it is only a Pyrrhic victory. When I was a newer on the bench, a friend asked me, quote, "Now that you've been a judge for a few years, do you have any particular advice," end quote. I replied, quote, "always sit with your back to the wall," end quote. And finally, dissent. The main winners from Judge Brown's opinion are George Soros and Gavin Newsom. The obvious losers are the people of Texas and the rule of law. I dissent. Holy shit, man. That is that's probably the most dramatic court document from a judge that I've ever read in my life. I mean, not that I read shitloads of court documents from judges, but I mean, I challenge anybody to find something more dramatic than that. That is absolutely crazy. So obviously unethical for them to just issue the order before they even get the dissent, because I'm assuming that they have to read the judge's dissent and then weigh they come up with the decision like, okay, well, we agree with what the plaintiffs or whoever, plaintiff, defendant, like, we agree with what they're saying, so, that's what we're going to go with. I'm assuming the dissenting judge has to write up his dissent, and then the judges who are ruling the other way must have a chance to read it, so maybe that might sway their final decision, and they might actually choose differently. But that's obviously not what happened here. Anyway, man, that is absolutely wild. So you could read the full opinion here, which I'll link in the description. Let's see. Okay, so it's a PDF, so it's downloadable. It's 104 pages that you could read in total. A hell of a long dissent. And let me see if there's, okay, here's another passage from it. Quote, "If, however, there were a Nobel Prize for fiction, Judge Brown's opinion would be a prime candidate," end quote. Dissent or Kurt Vonnegut. Either way, I'm kind of into it. Wow, man. So law professor Jonathan Adler weighs in. This dissent is scorching. If a fraction of what is alleged is true, Judge Brown has engaged in the sort of conduct that undermines and corrodes judicial process. It doesn't sound like that what he did was blatantly illegal. It just sounds like that it's so way far out of the norm and out of the way that it should be handled that, it's kind of shaking up the system. And maybe it would set a precedent, which doesn't sound good. Not in any way. Senior counsel Will Chamberlain weighs in. A remarkable opinion from Judge Smith. Judge Jeffrey Vincent Brown spit on the rule of law, not just by inserting himself into a redistricting process on frivolous grounds, but by issuing the decision in an insane rush that gave Judge Smith no time to write his dissent. I mean, why were they in such a massive hurry? That's what I don't get, because it's going up to the Supreme Court. I'm assuming if they set up the district map in a fair way, the Supreme Court's going to rule in Texas's favor, and it's just going to end up going through, and they're going to be able to redistrict as they originally intended on doing so. But the reason that they voted to not allow the state of Texas to redistrict was because they accused the district map of being set up on racial grounds. They were saying it's a racist map, and that's why we can't allow this redistricting to occur. And I don't know which president appointed these judges that voted against the redistricting. Wouldn't surprise me if they were Democrat judges in any way at all. I don't think it would surprise anybody, really. All right, so yeah, that happened. Okay, and moving on to Senate Republicans. This was a live video earlier today from the Senate GOP, and they speak to the press today, and it was about 7 hours ago. I don't think it's too long. If it is, then I'll just let them have the opening statement, and we'll just move on. So just give this a listen.
Although it was totally unnecessary.
Well, it's almost 10 minutes. It's a little long. I'll just see where it goes. If they kind of trail off on just one topic, that's, like if they just talk about the shutdown for another 5 minutes, then we'll just move on. But we'll see what happens.
Shutdown is over, and thankfully, after 43 days,
here we go already.
We had enough Democrats who concluded that continuing to punish the American people.
All right, moving on.
With an extended shutdown
let's
way to deal with the challenges that face our country. And so we're all very pleased that we are out of the shutdown. And of course, the question now is what comes next. And I think
Senator John
at least here in the
by
Senate,
the way,
we have a lot of things, as you know, we have to get done. The defense authorization bill, which has passed the Senate, is now being conferenced with the House. And when that conference is complete, we want to get that across the floor of the Senate. We have another nominations package we need to clear before the end of the year. And of course, we want to get the appropriations process moving again. It got slowed down during the shutdown, unfortunately, and as a consequence of that, we've got a lot of ground to make up. But as you all know, we did pass the 3 appropriations bills, and Milcon VA, Ag, and Ledge Branch. So 3 of the 12 are now law. And those 3 we got across the floor of the Senate before August, which is the first time that's happened since 2018. So as you all know, we are very committed to regular order on appropriations. We think that's the best way to fund the government, rather than having an omnibus bill written in the leader's office or a year-long CR. Going through a normal appropriations process where the committee marks up bills, has input from all the members on the committee, reports them to the floor, and there's an open process, transparent process on the floor, we think is the best way to fund the government. And so the challenge now is to get the next package ready to go. Starting, we've got the defense appropriations bill ready. We tried to move to that during the shutdown. The Democrats blocked it. We want to get on that.
Naturally.
We're also trying to clear 4 other appropriations bills to put together a minibus that we could act on here in the Senate. So we're working through those holds, but I would just urge everybody who is interested in actually having the government funded through the traditional appropriations process to try and work constructively to get these bills up on the floor, to let us get on them and have an amendment process and try and process them in a way that enables us
to fund the filibuster. Then you can do whatever you want.
Appropriations process, as opposed to, as I said,
Democrats are going to anyway if they get the Senate back.
Continuing resolution or an omnibus or something like that. Those are not solutions that are good for the country, and they're certainly not good for this institution or for the House of Representatives. We want to do it the old-fashioned way. So that's what we intend to be working on over the course of the next several weeks, and I'm hopeful we'll have more progress to report.
Well, it's good because those omnibus bills, they tend to be thousands of pages long, and senators tend to just jam just things that nobody would vote for otherwise. They just bury it on page like 1,382, like subsection 426, like A, B, Z or some shit. And it ends up getting passed. And we end up getting a whole bunch of ridiculous, whether if it's spending or if it's just legislation on whatever it might be for, it ends up not serving the American people in any positive way at all. So, I mean, I think they should do it the old-fashioned way. They should do it the old-fashioned way with every single bill. Every single individual bill that they want passed has to go through one by one. Oh my God, that would take forever though. Well, good. That's the way it should be. That's the way Congress should be. It should take forever because otherwise we're going to end up with all these omnibus bills and we're going to end up with like 16 million freaking different laws and we end up with $40 trillion in debt, for example. All right, well, we'll hear just a couple of questions.
About what you're going to do with this provision that allows senators to sue. Have you decided what you're going to do when the House sends that bill over to rescind that provision?
Well, we had a good conversation about that, and we'll have, I'm sure, a more fulsome conversation. Obviously, we'll see what the House does, but I will tell you that was designed, that was a Senate-specific solution. The statute that was violated applied only to the Senate, which is why we addressed it the way that we did. We strengthened that provision when it comes to allowing a federal government agency, the Justice Department in this case, to collect information, private information on individual senators. We think that's a violation of separation of powers under the Constitution. Obviously, Jack Smith violated the law in the way he went about that. This is something that needed to be addressed, and we'll see what the House does. And then we'll find out what our colleagues here in the Senate want to do.
Yeah, see, Democrats, one of their main points of pushback on this is that by passing what they're talking about passing, it would give the senators the ability to effectively sue the government for up to $500,000 for violating their rights. And that would basically mean that all 8 Republican senators would all receive $500,000 each as a payment of apology from the federal government. And I don't agree with that at all. I mean, if they were to be awarded $500,000 because their phones were tapped, I think that $500,000 should perhaps go to their state treasury and not go into their individual pockets.
One thing I can tell you is there is a high level of interest in addressing the weaponization of the federal government, in this case the Biden Justice Department, against Article 1 members of our government here in the United States Senate.
Now that the Congress has passed the Epstein Files Transparency Act, overwhelming votes in both chambers, Democrats say that they think the Justice Department, Pam Bondi, may slow walk the files release, citing ongoing investigations. Would it be a mistake for the administration to hold back these files given the overwhelming expression of sentiment by the Congress here?
Well, I trust the judgment of the Justice Department to ensure that whatever files they release protect the victims, clearly, and I think there are other items, perhaps materials that were acquired through grand jury trials that perhaps they will have to make some decisions about, but I think they'll make the right decisions. I think the clear intent was in both the House and the Senate and the bill now that I don't know if the President signed it yet or not, but is to get the information out there. And I think, as you saw, there was a big vote yesterday in the House, and it was unanimous here in the Senate to do that.
Speaker Johnson said that he was blindsided about that DOJ provision allowing senators to sue. He also said he was angry about it. And then he also said he was disappointed that the Senate didn't change the Epstein bill like he demanded. Why are you and him on such different pages when it comes to these huge issues?
Well, I mean, I think there are different. Obviously, having served in the House of Representatives for 6 years, I understand there are different ways of doing things. The House and the Senate function differently. We have procedures and rules that we have to adhere to and follow. It's much harder to get things, to pass things, as you all know, through the floor in the Senate. And so I think sometimes there are differences of opinion or disagreements that are partly related to the difference between the House and the Senate. They're different cultures. But in the end, the Speaker and I talk regularly. We communicate on a consistent basis, and we are unified in terms of our objectives and goals, and that is to work with the President of the United States to implement his and our agenda in a way that benefits the American people. And I think we've worked successfully to do that throughout this entire year, whether it's tax policy, energy policy, national security. You go right down the list. We have had a record of success, I think, both House and the Senate, in a unified way working together. So at times there may be, as I said, slight differences of opinion about how to proceed, how to get things done. But I think for the most part, I would say that we have an incredibly strong working relationship, and we work closely with the White House, and I think that's what's enabled a lot of the success.
Okay, all right. I'll just cut it there. I'll repost it. There's a link to my profile in the description if you want to check that out. Or you can just go to Senate GOP. It was 7 hours ago. The time, 2:37 p.m. But yeah, I think Democrats, they do have a pretty good point, in my opinion, about the $500,000 entitlement payment that senators would receive if anything is awarded to them financially. It shouldn't go into their pockets directly, as they are elected representatives. The money should be sent to their states instead. But I don't know. That's just me. I mean, of course, the Democrats, they framed the argument by saying, well, senators are receiving millions of dollars because their conversations were listened to once upon a time, which it is true in the totality of the settlement payment that millions of dollars would be awarded, but each senator wouldn't get millions. They would get $500K. But anyway, so we'll just move on to the White House. It's been a broken system for decades. President Trump is the one finally shutting it down. Department of Education abolished education to the states, which is partially true. They don't have the authority, President Trump or the Department of Education, Linda McMahon, she's heading the Department of Education. They don't have the sole authority to just completely dissolve it. But what they're doing is that they're shifting parts of the Education Department around to other agencies. And I think the Department of Labor is going to get the lion's share of what exists in the Department of Education currently. So they're essentially working to turn it into an empty shell. That's basically what they're doing. Now, if a Democrat gets back into the Oval Office, or if the Democrats take over Congress, it flips into the opposite direction, I'm sure they would have all the authority to just consolidate it all right back into the Education Department again. So wouldn't surprise me if that were to happen. But anyway, they actually have a video here with Ronald Reagan, it looks like.
Preparing for the future must begin, as always, with our children.
Woo, it's loud.
Better education doesn't mean a bigger Department of Education. In fact, that department should be abolished.
Across the country, we need to implement strict prohibitions on teaching inappropriate racial, sexual, and political material to America's school children in any form
Agreed.
whatsoever. And if federal bureaucrats are going to push this radicalism, we should abolish the Department of Education.
From the White House. Okay, moving on to ALX, breaking notable, well, it's Alex technically, but breaking notable high IQ Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett alleges that Jeffrey Epstein is still alive and donated to Lee Zeldin in 2020, contrary to media reports that he died in 2019. And here's the image. Source name, Jeffrey Epstein, recipient Zeldin for Congress, because he was a congressman from New York. The election, primary in general. Those are the dates in 2020, and those are the amounts, 500, 750, and 250. But yeah, but what they're not telling you is that Jeffrey Epstein is a physician, that he's not the Jeffrey Epstein, especially being that the date that they received it was in 2020, and we all know Jeffrey Epstein, he died in 2019, so it's not the same Jeffrey Epstein. So anyway, he's replying to ACYN or ACYN or whatever the hell he calls himself. So Crockett, folks who also took money from somebody named Jeffrey Epstein, as I had my team dig in very quickly. Mitt Romney, the NRCC, Lee Zeldin, George Bush, McCain, Palin. So let's hear this.
Folks who also took money from somebody named Jeffrey Epstein as...
You see how she frames that? See, she knows what she's saying is extremely misleading. She knows it's not the Jeffrey Epstein. She knows it's just some random person named Jeffrey Epstein who just happened to give campaign donations. So Democrats, this just goes to show how deeply that they're digging to try to put anything they possibly can on Republicans with regard to Jeffrey Epstein, and how little they actually have. Democrats have so little that they're seeking names of people who have the same name as Jeffrey Epstein who donated to Republicans, and they're trying to smear them in a way to make it sound like they got donations from the Jeffrey Epstein when they didn't. Not at all.
I had my team dig in very quickly. Mitt Romney.
Oh, y'all are digging way too deep.
NRCC, Lee Zeldin, George Bush, Win Red, McCain, Palin, Rick Lazio. I just want to be clear. If this is the standard that we're going to make, just know we're going to expose it all. And just know that the FEC filings, they are available for everybody to review. This is absolutely ridiculous.
And they did. They reviewed it, Jasmine Crockett, and you look like a fucking retard yet again. Again and again and again. She's out of her fucking mind. It's hilarious. And the dates are crystal clear. Like she said, you can go look at the filing for yourself that Jeffrey Epstein gave to Lee Zeldin, as well as Mitt Romney and John McCain and the National Republican Congressional Committee from Jeffrey Epstein in 2020. And also the Jeffrey Epstein one, see, those have him as Mr. Not familiar. Jeffrey M. Epstein is the sex offender. Jeffrey Epstein is his middle name. Is it an M? I don't know. But there's another one, Jeffrey B. Epstein. Those are clearly two different people. And then there's a Dr. Jeffrey M. Epstein. So these are all just different people with just the names Jeffrey Epstein that are donating to different individuals for their campaigns. So just another nothing burger that they have, because the Republicans, they have actual tangible evidence against Democrats. But Democrats, they've all just circumstantial nothing at all. Absolutely nothing. At least so far. I mean, I'm waiting to see, but they're going to be releasing these Epstein files any day as soon as they get Trump's signature. I think the clock starts, and I think it's like a 2-week window. The Department of Justice has to overturn the lists, the names, the flight logs, also everything that they have with regard to Ghislaine Maxwell. All that information, I think they've, once Trump signs it, I think they've got like a 2-week window on it. All right, rapid response 47. Hi, Mrs. Vance. Hi, I'm getting pulled away. Looks like the second lady of the United States already made a new friend. So the first lady and the second lady, they visited a school at the Marine Corps base at Camp Lejeune. I can't pronounce that. Lejeune, right? Is it Lejeune? Camp Lejeune. And in Jacksonville, North Carolina. So they visited an elementary school, both of them, and this is just a quick clip from that. Yeah, sharing is caring.
She loves to.
Adorable. All right, so we've got this one. First lady joins craft time with children attending school on Marine Corps base Camp Lejeune and in Jacksonville, North Carolina.
Put him in the tub. And scrub.
So yeah, visiting with the kids. I mean, we get the idea. Pretty cool. Hanging out with the elementary school kids, which is pretty cool. Yeah, the only famous, quote unquote famous person that I ever met, like when I was in, whether if it's elementary, middle school, or high school, was the mother of an NFL quarterback. And like the quarterback wasn't like, he wasn't there, but his mom was there, and she was giving us like his football card or whatever. I don't know if you're familiar with the quarterback Jeff George from the Indianapolis Colts. Yeah, his mother came and visited our school like way back when I was in first grade. So that's the closest I got to meeting a famous person while I was in school. Certainly not any high-level politician or the first lady or anything like that. So rapid response 47, the first lady and the second lady joined North Carolina military school children for crafts as Thanksgiving approaches. Just one more video. I think this is when they're just now arriving. I think she knows who she is. Say a lot of the kids probably don't know who she is. But maybe, I don't know. All right, we'll just move on. Rapid response again. So at Farm Bureau annual survey, the cost of Thanksgiving dinner declines. Quote, the centerpiece on most Thanksgiving tables, the turkey, dramatically decreased in price, which helped bring down the overall cost of dinner down more than 16% from last year. Well, that I would call an epic win. Definitely good. So the turkey, 16 pound, $21.50. Cranberries, $2.28. Sweet potatoes, 3 pounds, $4, and so on and so forth. So you can read the prices here on screen. Whole milk, $3.73. I shop Aldi. They sell gallons of milk for $2.90. Yeah, $2.90 for a gallon of milk at Aldi. Their turkeys are also, they sell turkeys there too, and they're also a lot cheaper. I think a 16 pounder there would be like $13, $14 roughly. So, yep, there you go. Thanksgiving dinner, a lot cheaper this year. And this comes from Scott Turner. with housing and urban development. And he says homelessness hits home for a lot of families, and mine is no different. We can't continue to enable and warehouse our vulnerable neighbors. Our latest COC reform will restore dignity in their lives and get them services that will lead to self-sustainability.
During the Biden administration, they were giving out drug kits with needles and
They
all
were.
of that. And I thought to myself,
That's
why
so
would you
fucked
give
up.
a drug addict needles to continue taking drugs?
No shit. And they were even installing fucking vending machines in New York, and they're probably still there. They have drug vending machines. I think they have like condoms and all kinds of other shit.
Right. Well, and that's the difference here under President
Needles
Trump's
and all
leadership.
that.
We actually care about the American people. We don't want more people homeless. We don't want more people on the streets, more people
On
dying
drugs.
of drug addictions. We want people literally to live in dignity. And if they do happen to pass away if they're homeless, to die in dignity. I have my uncle. We found him homeless several years ago. He was an American veteran.
Wow.
And because we were able to get wraparound services around him to treat him, the last 3 years of his life were the greatest 3 years of his life because he lived and died in dignity. That's what I want for the American people, to be able to live in dignity and to have a self-sufficient and self-sustainable life. And so that's why you see this paradigm
Well,
shift.
thank God for your efforts.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Or at least do the best they possibly can, because what they're doing now ain't working. You're just throwing money at it, as California did. $24 billion over the last 5 years they've given to the homeless crisis in California. The only thing they got out of it, more homeless people. That's all they got out of it. All right, Secretary Brooke Rollins, we're calling out what too many politicians and advocates are afraid to say out loud. SNAP fraud is real. It's pervasive, and hardworking Americans are the ones stuck paying for it. And we have the receipts. While millions play by the rules, many have learned to game the system, skirting work requirements, stealing benefits, trading cards for cash, and draining resources meant for the most vulnerable among us. So, real quick, stop. I saw somebody on TikTok who bought like 5 or 6 cases of a Walmart brand soda. I don't know if they still call it Sam's Choice. They did like back in the day. But they bought like 5 or 6 cases worth of soda, and they walked out to the parking lot with their buggy, and they went up to a storm drain in the middle of the parking lot. They opened up can after can and poured the contents down the drain, and they were hanging on to the cans so they could go recycle it. It must have been in like Michigan or one of those few states where you can recycle cans for money. And somebody called her, or somebody called the police while she was doing it, and they arrested her on site. They arrested her for fraud because she was using her SNAP benefit money to do that. So anyway, every dollar lost to fraud is a dollar taken straight from the pocket of an American taxpayer. No hardworking family should be forced to subsidize the lifestyle of bad actors and criminals. We've had enough. We're not backing down. We're not looking the other way. We're getting to the bottom of this fraud. Every scheme, every loophole, every abuse. Under the president, SNAP fraud ends.
But Brooke, just in limited time, you're able to reform the SNAP and food stamp program, and I just wondered, are there a lot of able-bodied people in those programs that shouldn't be in them? I don't want to sound cruel,
yeah.
but you know, if you can work, you should be working.
Hey, I have a handy-dandy chart. I was getting to the affordability piece of SNAP. Almost 40% increase under Joe
Spending
Biden
in billions.
of what was spent in the people that entered the food stamp/SNAP program.
Illegal immigrants.
That's 40%. Of course, they were working to buy the election. But what we have seen and what Doge and our amazing team at USDA, 186,000 dead people are receiving SNAP benefits. 500,000 people are getting paid twice. We've made hundreds of arrests. We have a lot more to do. But this was, I think, an unintended consequence of the Democrats shutting the government down for 43 days, is it shined this very bright light on one of their pet programs and now has given us a platform to completely deconstruct the program, make sure those vulnerable Americans who really need that benefit are going to get it. And for all the rest of the fraudsters and the people who are corrupt and taking advantage of it, we're going to protect the taxpayer too. So more news coming on that, Larry. We'll be back on soon to talk about what that's going to look like.
Yeah, and probably thousands of indictments along the way. And the problem the Democrats have is that the Trump administration, they're around for a few years to come. So they can actually roll this thing out and actually see it through. Okay, Senator Katie Boyd Britt, I am strongly supportive of a maximum pressure campaign to target Russian oil and cut off financing for this senseless war. Our goal remains to end Russian aggression against Ukraine permanently. President Trump and his team are taking strong and necessary steps to ensure lasting peace in the region. This is from the Treasury Department. President Trump has targeted Russia's 2 largest oil companies in one of the most impactful Treasury actions to date. Russian oil is now selling at multi-year lows, starving Putin's war machine. President Trump is the peace and prosperity president, and Treasury is prepared to take further action if necessary to end the senseless killing. Well, one of the main problems that they have is that a lot, if not most, of the oil that Russia sells to the world is being sold to Europe. Europe spends a lot of money on Russian oil and natural gas. So I know that President Trump and really the administration, the federal government, I know we've been trying to work with Europe at least to try to get them to stop buying Russian oil and perhaps start purchasing from us, or maybe buy from some proxy country that we're involved with. I don't know, maybe Saudi Arabia or something like that. I don't know. I don't know the ins and outs of all that. All I know is that many, many billions of dollars per year from Europe is going straight to Russia to buy Russian oil and natural gas. And Russia takes the money, obviously, and they fund their war machine. And at the same time, Europe, the EU, they're purchasing weapons from the United States that we're manufacturing, and they're taking those weapons and delivering them to Ukraine. Like, okay. Talk about playing both sides. All right. FBI Director Kash Patel, Ryan Wedding. This is crazy, dude. Ryan Wedding is one of the FBI's 10 most wanted fugitives, allegedly responsible for an untold amount of Americans suffering through narcotics trafficking. This week, the FBI and great partners took down a major part of his network, 10 plus arrests, and we're one step closer to bringing the kingpin to justice. The interagency work here is a huge step toward justice for far too many American lives lost, and work that will save lives in the future. We won't stop. So there are all kinds of people on X, on the government front, that are talking about this guy, about this Ryan Wedding individual. It's the ATF, I believe, the DEA, trying to think, the Justice Department, and individuals like Pam Bondi. Obviously, Kash Patel is one of them. Above anything else that I saw when I was scrolling through X all day today was this dude's name, Ryan Wedding. If I had piled every post that I saw from a government official, it'd probably be at least like 50 or 100 of them. But anyway, I took like 3 or 4, give or take. So we'll play this video and then we'll go to the next one.
You do not get to be a drug kingpin and evade the law. Make no mistake about it. Ryan Wedding is a modern-day iteration of Pablo Escobar.
By the way, they believe he is residing in Mexico. So, in case you were wondering,
he's a modern-day iteration of El Chapo Guzman. This Justice Department and this FBI
he's a Canadian
will work
citizen.
with our Canadian counterparts and the government officials across the world to bring him to justice.
Yeah, they're scouring the earth for this motherfucker.
For engineering a narco-trafficking and narco-terrorism program that we have not seen in a long time. He will not evade justice. We are here today because this Department of Justice, behind Attorney General's brilliant leadership and the Deputy Attorney General, have made it clear to the American people with the indictments they have brought that law enforcement and agencies like this FBI will lead the effort to go out there and make sure these animals are brought to justice. And that's
you think one of those 10 people are going to rat on him?
This step,
these days,
interagency step,
oh,
is
you know it.
Huge step towards obtaining justice for so many American lives lost and so many American lives saved. Thanks to the courageous efforts of law enforcement. This is what a great team looks like, working together for the American people under the motto that President Trump set forth to make America safe again. It's incredibly humbling for this FBI to be a part of it and to lead out the efforts on Ryan Wedding. And for those of you out there that have any information on Ryan Wedding, now is the time to speak up. Now is the time to help.
Damn, they got a $10 million reward for him.
Engage the public around the world for their assistance in bringing some of the world's most dangerous criminals and terrorists to justice. And we are doing so again today. He will not evade justice. He will not evade our capture. He will not evade arrest, and he will not evade prosecution. Because of the Attorney General's leadership here today, we are taking a huge step in that direction. And I'm honored to be a part of this FBI and leading its men and women in law enforcement on a daily basis. It's really one of the best things I've ever encountered. And the teamwork is something I just want to stress more than anything. Our federal, state, and local partners have bonded together like never before to bring you these results that we've talked about these last 8-9 months. And today is just yet another example of a historic achievement for the Trump administration in safeguarding American lives.
I mean, in my opinion, it's kind of concerning that they would come out and they would put him on blast to this extent, like all these different federal agencies bringing up Ryan Wedding today, because the dude's probably got billions of dollars at his disposal, being a drug kingpin. He's He's probably on his way to a non-extradition country as we speak. I mean, now that the freaking director of the FBI is putting him on blast right now. So the U.S. Department of Justice, 10 people arrested in federal indictment charging Olympic athlete turned cocaine trafficker with ordering murder of witness in January. This is on justice.gov. And it goes on to say 10 defendants have been arrested and 11 total are in custody pursuant to a 9-count federal grand jury indictment unsealed today, charging a former Olympic snowboarder now on the FBI's 10 most wanted fugitives list, a Canadian criminal barrister, a reggae musician, a would-be Gangland News website operator, and others in connection with the January 31st murder in Colombia of a federal witness in a separate criminal case. Ryan James Wedding, 44, a Canadian national residing in Mexico, the case's lead defendant, is charged with overseeing the operations of a criminal enterprise, including by engaging in witness intimidation tactics such as murder and enriching himself with the enterprise's laundered drug proceeds. In March of 2025, Wedding was placed on the FBI's list of 10 most wanted fugitives. There is an increased $15 million reward for information leading to his arrest and/or prosecution. The following defendants were arrested Tuesday as part of the second phase of a law enforcement action titled Operation Giant Slalom. And those are the names. Whether you're a kingpin or a dealer on the street, anyone who sells drugs to our kids will be arrested and prosecuted, said Attorney General Pamela Bondi. Ryan Wedding controls one of the most prolific and violent drug trafficking organizations in this world and works closely with the Sinaloa cartel. We will not rest until his name is taken off the FBI's 10 most wanted list and his narco-trafficking organization lies dismantled. The murder of a witness in Colombia earlier this year was a cruel, cold-blooded act that could not and did not go unanswered, said First Assistant United States Attorney Bill Esseley of the Central District of California. Quote, this week's arrests underscore our resolve to root out and punish the wrongdoers involved in this criminal organization and serve as a warning for drug lord Ryan Wedding. If convicted, you will never see the outside of a prison ever again, which is all the more reason for him to jump into his private jet and flee to a non-extradition country. Today's announcement is a culmination of the steadfast work of the FBI and our partners around the world to identify and dismantle violent gang and drug organizations, said FBI Director Kash Patel. Ryan Wedding and his associates allegedly imported tons of cocaine each year from Colombia through Mexico and onto the streets of U.S. communities. His criminal activities and violent actions will not be tolerated, and this is a clear signal that the FBI will use our resources and expertise to find Ryan Wedding and bring him and his associates to justice. And it looks like it goes on quite a ways, so I'll link that in the description if you want to read the rest of this. Very extensive. $15 million reward. If he just so happens to be in a place where you know he is, you could end up ratting him out and get $15 million. So here's the wanted poster of him. U.S. Department of State offers a reward of up to $15 million for info leading to the arrest and or conviction of Ryan James Wedding, wanted for allegedly running and participating in a transnational drug trafficking operation. So this is on the FBI Most Wanted profile. And conspiracy to distribute and possess with intent to distribute cocaine, conspiracy to export cocaine, also conspiracy to commit murder in connection with a continuing criminal enterprise and drug crime and murder in connection with a continuing criminal enterprise and drug crime, conspiracy to tamper with a witness, victim, or informant and tampering with a witness, victim, or informant, conspiracy to retaliate against a victim, a witness, or informant, and retaliation against a witness, victim, or informant, conspiracy to launder monetary instruments. So there's his image there at the bottom. And again, he's a Canadian national. The photo or both photos were taken in 2024. And then we've got this from Undersecretary John Hurley. Today, we're exposing the network of associates and enablers behind Ryan Wedding, one of the most notorious criminals and narco traffickers still evading justice. Treasury is joining with the FBI and Department of Justice to cut Wedding and his criminal partners off from the U.S. financial system and help dismantle the network they rely on. Our goal is simple: make it difficult for criminals like this to profit from poisoning our communities. And this is from the Treasury Department. Today, Treasury's Office of Foreign Assets Control sanctioned Ryan Wedding alongside 9 individuals and 9 entities closely associated with them. Wedding, a former Olympic snowboarder for Team Canada, is one of the FBI's 10 most wanted fugitives. And I'll just link this. I won't get into the details, but that's on the Treasury's website. And we'll head back, and I may have one more on this. Yeah, so this is from the U.S. Department of State, LNL. So that would be, or INL. My apologies, INL. All right, so they go on to say, no one, not even a former Olympian, is above the law. We are increasing our reward offer up to $15 million for the info leading to the arrest and or conviction. And then they leave a phone number for the FBI. And, of course, the wanted posters. Looks like there's another image here. Let's see. All right, yeah, I'm assuming that's the Ryan Wedding guy. They've got an image of him riding on a motor scooter. And, of course, they have it in Spanish. All right, Narcotics Rewards Program. And we'll move on to the next thing from Criminal Division. Tennessee man sentenced to over 18 years in prison for illegally possessing a firearm, which I think is insane. 18 years just for possession of a firearm. Of course, he's a multiple felon. He's been convicted of multiple felonies. Apparently, he's a dangerous felon, so on and so forth. But 18 years, I think, is insane. A federal judge sentenced a Tennessee man to 221 months in prison and 3 years supervised release today for being a felon in possession of a firearm under the Armed Career Criminal Act. Quote, gun violence poses a significant danger to the safety and security of our communities, said Acting Assistant Attorney General Matthew R. Gagliotti of the Justice Department's Criminal Division. Quote, today's significant sentence highlights the Criminal Division's steadfast commitment to aggressively prosecuting repeated armed offenders and protecting the public. I thank the prosecutors and our federal and state law enforcement partners who worked diligently to achieve this result, end quote. And another quote, convicted felons who possess firearms are an inherent danger to community. And in this case, the defendant was an armed career criminal who continued to possess a firearm despite his prior felony conviction history. U.S. Attorney D. Michael Donovan for the Western District of Tennessee. There is and ought to be a significant consequence for such recidivist criminal behavior, and this is one more armed career criminal removed from our streets for a long time. These efforts signify what can be accomplished when we work together with our local, state, and federal law enforcement partners to combat violent crime. Special Agent in Charge Jamie Van Vliet of the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, Nashville Field Division. Through this collaboration, we were able to remove a violent armed career criminal from our Memphis streets. So on January 19th of 2022, Memphis Police Department stopped a vehicle driven by Markel Strong, age 29 of Memphis, because its window tint violated traffic law. Police observed and seized a firearm in plain view located in the front seat near the vehicle's center console. Strong was prohibited from possessing a firearm because of his numerous prior violent felony convictions. On August 19th, federal jury found Strong guilty of being a felon in possession of a firearm and separately determined that Strong's 3 prior violent felony convictions occurred on separate dates, which triggered enhanced punishment under the Armed Career Criminal Act. At today's sentencing hearing, the United States presented evidence of the defendant's violent behavior while in custody, as well as other crimes to which the seized firearm has been linked. So, yeah, apparently while he was in custody, he was, fighting people and acting a fool. ATF and MPD investigated the case. Trial attorney Ashley Adesoy of the Criminal Division's Violent Crime and Racketeering Section and Assistant U.S. Attorney Regina Brittenham of the Western District of Tennessee prosecuted the case. This case is part of the Criminal Division's Violent Crime Initiative in Memphis, conducted in partnership with the U.S. Attorney's Office in the Western District of Tennessee and local, state, and federal law enforcement. This joint effort addresses violent crime by employing, where appropriate, federal laws to prosecute violent gang members and other violent criminals in Memphis. And again, I'm still going to stand by that, man. 18 years is just ridiculous. So anyway, I said crazy sentence. Felons possessing firearms is a perfect argument for every single law-abiding American to carry. Freedom never guarantees safety. And I wanted to highlight this one. It's not illegal to possess a firearm, and there's no such thing as, quote, gun violence, end quote. I mean, I guess on the books, there are circumstances that make it illegal to possess a firearm, even though I think it's totally unjust because the Second Amendment doesn't say anything about being a felon or this or that or what have you. I think that just only makes the case for my comment that every law-abiding American should, or whether if they conceal or they openly carry, they should carry a firearm to protect themselves. Because you never know who's out there. You never know who's driving next to you, who's standing in front of you or behind you in a line somewhere. You just don't know who people are. And therefore, you really shouldn't trust anybody. So funny, and how many times was Irania Zaratuska's killer arrested for felonies? And he's out, thank you once again for proving that we have a multi-tiered justice system. Of course, different states, Tennessee, and I think where that happened was in North Carolina. Please stop using the term gun violence. That non-violent gun is no more violent in my hands than a taco. Absolutely, I couldn't agree more. So, all right. Anyway, we'll move on. Department of State, quote, we ended the war in Gaza. And 2 days ago, incredibly, the United Nations Security Council backed the Trump peace plan. We have 59 countries signed on. They endorsed the United Nations, what's called the Board of Peace, chaired by a person called Donald J. Trump.
But we also, as you know, we had a historic ceasefire. We ended the war in Gaza. And 2 days ago, incredibly, the United Nations Security Council backed the Trump peace plan, and we have a great peace plan. We have peace in the Middle East. This is a strong peace, too. They say, oh, it's tentative. It's not. This is a very strong peace. We have 59 countries signed on.
Well, plus there's the Abraham Accords,
when there's
too.
problems, I'm getting calls from countries. They want to go in and lead the fight to solve the problem if we have any problems. But right now it's looking very good and endorsed. They endorsed the United Nations, what's called the Board of Peace, chaired by a person called Donald J. Trump. I accepted the chairmanship. They asked me to be chairman.
Well, there
That's
you go.
what I needed. It's just a little more work.
Yeah, just yet another thing to do.
It's a great honor. That'll be the greatest board ever assembled. Where do you see this board? This board.
I also learned recently that President Trump's also the chairman of the Kennedy Center also.
Will blow every board away.
Yeah, dude, talk about having irons in the fire.
I believe we're going to be lucky enough to have the Crown Prince be a very distinguished member of the board. But we're going to have the heads of the Board of Peace, and I think it will go long beyond Gaza and the Middle East. I can see that going long beyond. There'll never be anything like this in terms of, I know you all have wonderful boards, but this is going to blow it away. It's going to blow them all away, and it's going to do some really good.
Yep, it should. It's going to take years and years, as my understanding goes. But at least it's a step in the right direction, the only direction that it needs to go. All right, Christopher Landau. Criminal gangs have terrorized Haiti for years, but the situation has escalated in the last week with calls for open war against the central government. The U.S. and other countries in the region and around the world have a clear message. Enough with gang violence and destruction and political infighting. Now is the time for Haiti's leaders to unite against a common threat, and anyone who obstructs Haiti's path to political stability must expect consequences from the U.S. and others, including visa revocations. And it's just Haiti on a map. And moving to U.S. Senior Advisor for Arab and African Affairs, he says, as the president declared today, the United States is committed to ending the horrific conflict in Sudan. Under President Trump's leadership, we are working with our partners to facilitate a humanitarian truce and bring an end to external military support for the parties, which is fueling the violence. With peace and stability, the Sudanese people can return to civilian-led governance in a unified Sudan. The president wants peace, and with Secretary Rubio, we are acting now. And Secretary Rubio, by the way, he's the Secretary of State. And Donald J. Trump's Truth Social, he says, tremendous atrocities are taking place in Sudan. It has become the most violent place on earth and likewise the single biggest humanitarian crisis. Food, doctors, and everything else are desperately needed. Arab leaders from all over the world, in particular the highly respected Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, who has just left the United States, have asked me to use the power and influence of the presidency to bring an immediate halt to what is taking place in Sudan. It is considered a great civilization and culture, unfortunately gone bad, but one that can be fixed with cooperation and coordination of countries, including those in the region of tremendous wealth who want this to happen. We will work with Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, Egypt, and other Middle Eastern partners to get these atrocities to end, while at the same time stabilizing Sudan. Thank you for your attention to this matter. God bless the world. And heading to the next, travel, State Department, Mexico City. A large protest march is planned from the Angel of Independence Monument to the Zocalo on Thursday, November 20th, starting at 11 a.m. Groups expected to participate in this protest also participated in a November 15th protest that turned violent. Dude, that was crazy. I saw some video from that. Like thousands of people showed up to protest in front of their, I don't know what they call it, their main government building or whatever they call it. It's wherever the Mexican president, wherever she stays. Yeah, that was nuts, man. The march coincides with the Mexican Revolution commemorative military parade, which begins at 10 a.m. at the Zocalo and ends at the Revolution Monument. I'm sure that's probably the same building that I'm thinking of. Let's see. So demonstrations can be unpredictable. Avoid active protests and exercise caution if you encounter large gatherings or demonstrations. And you can see more at mx.usembassy.gov, linked below. Okay, so Attorney General Pamela Bondi, she's back. Today, the Justice Department attorneys secured a significant victory to allow Immigration and Customs Enforcement and CBP and to do their jobs and use force when necessary in Chicago. Our stay reflects that federal law enforcement officers have the right to do their jobs even when threatened with violence and chaos. We have the backs of our brave law enforcement officers, and we will continue fighting and winning in court for the president's agenda. And it's Customs and Border Protection. I don't know why I had a brain fart for a second, but all right. Anyway, so we're going to move on to Homeland Security. You're welcome. And I had to do some digging in the comments to understand what this is all about. It's obviously the city of Charlotte, North Carolina, and it's showing the traffic map. Everything's in green with little pockets of red here and there. I'm assuming this possibly or potentially might be during a rush hour, maybe. So looking into the comments, I believe it was under Homeland Security's comments. Let me see. Have you seen this? Training sessions have been occurring since late last week. Customs and Border Protection agents target the Charlotte area as part of Operation Charlotte's Web, the latest phase of President Donald Trump's immigration enforcement efforts. Let's see. Can DHS come to Charleston next? So they've got backups. So apparently in Charlotte, they just rounded up so many illegal immigrants that I guess traffic is flowing more freely now. At least that's my takeaway. I drove cross country this week and was almost smoked by a semi on 2 separate occasions within an 800-mile drive. That's not related. Hiring and training. Okay, so let me go back to the original post. That might have been where I was reading some of the information. This is absolutely eye-opening and truly shocking. I had no idea of the impact to my daily life. The CMS stats released also shocking. I feel like we have been overrun, and no one knew the extent until this week. And I guess no one knew the extent until this week. People know now, and that's from CLT Suburbia. They're the ones that posted this map. So yeah, it's definitely suggesting that because of Operation Charlotte's Web and them rounding up so many illegal immigrants in Charlotte, that traffic is actually flowing freely again. And Dr. Justin H., it is wild. I'm going to be honest. My morning commute is generally 35 minutes. This morning, it was only 20. Just speechless. Get these illegals out of our city and rent comes down. He's absolutely right about that. And traffic clears up. Prices go down. Quality of life improves. Yeah. Everything gets better, man. Everything gets better. Even food prices, I would argue. Local food prices would even get better because you got fewer people buying them. Therefore, the supply ends up going up. So then they'll end up slashing prices. And obviously the rent, that should go without saying. Most illegal immigrants are renting. But of course, they got to live somewhere. And they're not generally taking out mortgages. They're not purchasing houses for the most part, even though J.D. Vance would say otherwise. So moving on to, let's see if there's anything else. It's probably less than 20,000 cars removed from county roads, but they're all from the bottom half of terrible drivers. Traffic has picked back up for the evening. Okay, so this must, obviously that's going to be evening rush hour. So, I mean, they're suggesting that the removal of so many illegals have allowed traffic to flow better in the city of Charlotte, or just maybe by just sheer absolute crazy coincidence that it just so happened to be just like nobody got into an accident today. Maybe it was just that simple. All right, moving on. Tricia McLaughlin omitting some pesky facts, Senator. So let's take a look at this first. Senator Chris Van Hollen says Melissa Tran came here on a green card at age 11. She's since raised 4 kids, started a business, and is a beloved member of the Hagerstown community. Trump is deporting her despite a judge saying she poses no threat. It doesn't matter if she doesn't pose a threat or not. If she's overstayed her visa, you gotta go. Is she the worst of the worst? Do you feel safer yet? Hagerstown mother and nail salon owner set for deportation to Vietnam. I'm telling you, man, they protect criminal illegal aliens. But what is she a criminal of? Just overstaying her visa? That's not that bad of a crime. Well, let's see what Tricia McLaughlin says. So Mong Thai Tran is a criminal illegal alien from Vietnam with criminal convictions, including grand larceny, multiple counts of forgery, and fraud. An immigration judge issued her a final order of removal way back in 2004, 21 years ago. Over 20 years ago, ICE arrested her back in May. So there you go. Just another Democrat who's trying to protect criminal illegal immigrants because they just want to hang on to every single constituent they possibly can. They just can't let one single one go without a fight. All right, ATF Miami, are you interested in being a special agent? ATF is hiring for the Washington, D.C. area. The link is below. ATF is hiring, and I'll just copy the link. If you want to be an ATF agent, then you can check out the description, and there'll be a link for the hiring of ATF special agents. All right, House Foreign Affairs Committee majority. Just like we've seen in those countries, the resulting political and economic crisis could lead to mass migration to our southern border and create safe havens for narco-trafficking networks. The House Foreign Affairs Committee is holding a hearing on this tomorrow. Stay tuned. Democracy in peril. The fight for free election in Honduras. Maybe to most people that might sound more like a snooze fest than anything, but if you're into committee hearings, a lot of them get quite dramatic, especially if it's generally a bit more political than this. But whenever they have committee hearings, especially when you get like some official in the hot seat and Democrats, Republicans end up shouting at each other, they get all pissed off at the person sitting at in the hot seat. So I wouldn't expect this one to get too crazy tomorrow, but it's happening tomorrow if you're interested. And U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, Oklahoma, illegal aliens should not be operating 18-wheelers on our highways and interstates. Great work by our 287G partners at OHP-DPS, which is the Oklahoma Highway Patrol and Department of Public Safety, for helping keep American roads safe for American families. They're replying to Governor Kevin Stitt. Let me be clear, Oklahoma will not stop cracking down on illegal immigrant truck drivers. The OHP-DPS with ICE and 287G completed its third Operation Guardian across 3 operations. More than 200 semi-truck drivers have been apprehended. Enter into Oklahoma and abide by the law. Operation Guardian. And moving along. Rep August Pfluger, the majority of Americans do not want MS-13 gang members and illegal criminals in our communities. Unfortunately, former President Biden let millions of these people in. I applaud the president, President Trump, also DHS and Secretary Noem for restoring law and order and keeping our country safe. We've got a video here.
Well,
check this out.
Let's get back to a normal argument where
that loud.
Americans say, yeah, we don't want MS-13 gang members, and most Americans don't. So you have this very small faction of the Democrat Party, the radical side, who says, no, we need to let those people in. Well, Joe Biden let millions of people in, and this is the result. You have so many people in sex trafficking.
I get what Democrats are going to say. Oh, Joe Biden let in millions of MS-13 members. No, he didn't let in millions of MS-13 members. Not all of them are, future convicted felons. Yes, the majority of them are probably just decent people under third world economic circumstances. They just want to come into the country and just make a lot of money. And it's just that simple. But they still broke the law to get here. And at the end of the day, they got to go back home. And the majority of Americans believe that too.
Entities, gang members, terrorist activities. We know that there are over 2,000 people who matched a terror watch list that they let in.
Well, there you go. 2,000 on the terror watch list.
Trump
My God.
For going after these people and keeping our country safe.
So was that the auto pen? I mean, did Joe Biden understand what he was doing with this wide open border?
No, of course not.
Or was that the extremist part of the party doing things when he was asleep?
I mean, obviously, I would love to chalk it up to the auto pen. But let's be honest. I think this was deliberate. I think they knew exactly what they were doing.
Well, wait a minute. Who was the border czar? Who was the person who was tasked with being in charge of our southern border? The one individual. It was Kamala Harris. That's who it was. She was the one who was tasked with the southern border. She only gave a single speech with regard to the southern border. She went to, it was like Honduras. It was one of the Central American countries. Gave like a 5-minute speech. And the punchline of the entire speech was, don't come. The end. Don't come. That's all she said.
And where did these people go? They go to places like New York and California where health care and other benefits are provided to them.
Unbelievable.
And it's all connected. It's all tied together. And when you talk about congressional lines and districts, this is why it's important to understand who is in our country. And I've always pushed for the census to only count American citizens.
Yeah.
Yeah, 2,000 people crossed over our border that they found to be on our terror watch list. 2,000. Oh my God. All right, FBI, 4 hours ago, Afghan national sentenced to serve 15 years in federal prison after plotting election day terror attack in the United States. I wonder if he was one of the 2,000, probably. And this is on justice.gov. Getting a lot from justice.gov today. 15 years at federal prison. So in other words, like how much does it cost? It's like $55,000 or almost $60,000 that it costs to house a federal prisoner each year. So yeah, so the American people are going to have to dish out like damn near $1 million worth of our tax money to house this asshole. I think that's why they should, I can't remember the name of that island. Attu. Yeah, it's Attu Island up in Alaska. I've made that argument several times. They should build a facility on Attu Island in Alaska. It is on the very tip of the chain of islands that go way out into the Bering Sea. It gets a lot closer to Russia than it is on the U.S. side. In the middle of nowhere. It's the largest uninhabited island that we have in the United States of America, and they should build a prison and put people like him there and build it in a way that it doesn't cost $60,000 to house them. Give them bread, give them water, give them just enough heat so they don't freaking die or whatever. I mean, don't be too inhumane, but at least find a way to get the cost down. Maybe probably putting them on a faraway island would probably end up costing like 10 times more, really. So maybe that's just a bad idea. But anyway, Abdullah Haji Zada, aged 19, a native and citizen of Afghanistan and U.S. lawful permanent resident, has been sentenced to serve the statutory maximum of 15 years. Dude, they threw the book at him. In federal prison for knowingly receiving, attempting to receive, and conspiring to receive a firearm and ammunition to be used to commit a federal crime of terrorism. I wonder which president ended up nominating or approving the appointment of this federal judge who gave him the maximum. Certainly it wasn't a Democrat, probably. Let's see. So anyway, receiving. Okay, yeah, so we already got that. According to court documents, Zeta and a co-conspirator received 2 AK-47 style rifles and 500 rounds of ammunition, knowing that the firearms and ammunition would be used in connection with the terrorist attack on Election Day in November of 2024. On behalf of the Islamic State of Iraq and Al-Sham, or ISIS, a designated foreign terrorist organization. Zada was arrested with his co-conspirator, Nasir Ahmed Tawhidi. Oh man, I could totally make a joke on that name, but I'm not going to. All right, 28, also a citizen of Afghanistan in October 2024. Quote, Zada was welcomed in the United States and provided with all the opportunities available to residents of our nation, yet he chose to embrace terrorism and plot an ISIS-inspired attack on Election Day, said John A. Eisenberg, Assistant Attorney General for National Security. Quote, today's sentence and Zada's eventual removal from the United States reflect the seriousness of his betrayal and our commitment to using every tool at our disposal to detect and disrupt such plots. All right, so, we got more quotes. It says he entered a guilty plea. He was only 17 at the time when he entered his guilty plea earlier. Wait, that doesn't make any sense. They said he's 19 right now, but his guilty plea was entered in April of this year. So he would be, 18 now, I guess. All right, I don't know. So a sentencing hearing. So, all right. Yeah, the Judge Scott L. Polk, that's who it is, ended up sentencing him 15 years to serve. Let's just see. It's co-conspirator, pleaded guilty on June 13. And let's see. He faces a maximum penalty up to 20 years for material support charge and up to 15 for the firearms charge. And yeah, so they'll be permanently removed from the United States once their sentence is completed. FBI Oklahoma Field Office, Joint Terrorism Task Force, Homeland Security, Customs Enforcement. So, these are all the different agencies and departments that investigated and brought him them to justice. All right. So, you can read that below if you want to check that out in further. So, the DEA HQ 5 hours ago. Check out today's historic GCG Stone cocaine offload at Port Everglades. DEA Administrator Terry Cole sat down exclusively with CBS Evening News to discuss the impact this offload has on the drug cartels. And if you want to learn more about the seizures, it'll be on news.uscg, which is US Coast Guard, .mil, and that'll be down below in the description. Let's check out this quick clip. Not really a clip. It's just freaking images. I thought it was an actual video clip. Oh, there's the drugs. That's a lot of drugs. Well, that dog's in heaven, ain't he? Damn, dude, they're offloading them on fucking pallets. A lot of drugs. Pallet number 1 of like, what, 50? Oh, that's the third one at least. Yeah, man, that's a lot of drugs. Awful lot of drugs. And yeah, so they said it's on the CBS Evening News tonight. Not sure when that airs, but they'll be featured on the CBS Evening News. All right, U.S. Coast Guard Southeast. Breaking. U.S. Coast Guard, is it Cutter? Is that the USCGC? Stone offloaded 49,010 pounds of cocaine worth $362 million at Port Everglades, the largest single patrol haul in U.S. Coast Guard history. This offload shows our strengthened posture in the fight against narco-terrorism. Captain O'Connell, U.S. Coast Guard Cutter Stone. And tiny URL. I will link that. I believe it's going to be the same, isn't it? Yeah, it's the same article. I figured it would be. And we've got a couple of clips here. So let me see how I'm going to do this. Let me start with this one. And there we go. Is there no sound? Oh, yeah, there's a little bit of sound. No background music, which I appreciate. You never know what's going to be copyrighted or not. Crank this up a little bit.
Stone and her crew have done incredible work over the past few months. All right, I think we got everybody.
Oh yeah, Tulsi Gabbard was there. Did you see that? I caught Tulsi Gabbard there at the end. There she is right there. Okay, let's go to the next one. Hopefully it's not. Okay, good. I'm going to turn down the volume. I'll blow out eardrums. Ooh, I'm glad I turned that down. Are they going to blow it up? They're going to blow it up, aren't they? Hell yeah, son. Oh, they're shooting at it. Using it for target practice. Oh, dude, that'd be a blast. Pun intended. So the criminals they apprehended, are they like making them stand on the edge of the ship, just like watching what they're doing? Like forcing them to turn their heads? No, you watch! You watch what we're doing! All right. So it looks like, yeah, those are the only 2 clips. Okay, so we're going to move on to the Department of War news. The U.S. Marine Corps veteran dies while rescuing trapped coal miners. Definitely a sad story. A very change of mood. The Marine Corps combat veteran Stephen M. Lipscomb lost his life November 8th while looking after the safety of his crew at the Rolling Thunder Mine in Nicholas County, West Virginia. Quote, all of West Virginia mourns the loss of this courageous man, in quote, said West Virginia Governor Patrick Morrisey in a November 14th proclamation, which also ordered state flags flown at half-staff. You know what? That might actually, that's probably the reason the White House, I think it was at the White House, they had their flag at half-staff yesterday. Quote, he spent his final moments ensuring his men could escape to safety, end quote. During routine operations at the coal mine, a crew encountered a sudden and substantial inflow of water, said a report from the mine's owner. Lipscomb was last seen attempting to ensure the safety of his crew, but was unable to reach safety himself. All other miners in the area evacuated safely. Lipscomb, the foreman, stood his ground until every member of his crew was evacuated. The water filled the shaft, making escape impossible. For 5 days, crews worked around the clock to rescue Lipscomb, but sadly he did not survive, end quote, Morrissey said. Our coal miners represent some of the most courageous among us, and Steve was a testament to that, the governor added. Lipscomb participated in the first Battle of Fallujah in Iraq, which began April 4th of 2004, according to his obituary. He was wounded in Iraq 7 days later when his Humvee hit a roadside bomb, said Heather Lipscomb, his wife of 20 years. The corporal was medically discharged on May 1st of 2005 as a result of his extensive injuries, she said, adding that they wed as soon as he returned to their hometown of Elkview, West Virginia. Retired Marine Steve Lipscomb represents the best of our American military and embodies the hero spirit. this Purple Heart recipient and Operation Iraqi Freedom veteran protected his nation and community until the very last day, in quote, said Secretary of War Pete Hegseth. There's an image of him and his wife. Steve's life will forever be an example of service and sacrifice for myself and for all who serve. My prayers remain with the Lipscomb family. Your father, husband, and son will never be forgotten, Hegseth said. A great American, Semper Fi, Steve, wrote Vice President J.D. Vance on his social media account. Vance is also a Marine veteran. Semper Fi is short for Semper Fidelis, Latin for always faithful, the Marine Corps motto. Lipscomb enlisted in the infantry as a rifleman on February 25th, 2002, shortly after the terrorist attacks of 9/11. I think Stephen was a very selfless person. He had 17 men on his crew in the coal mines. He was more worried about everybody else getting out and getting to safety more than he was concerned about himself, Heather Lipscomb said. She said she credits his Marine training with preparing him for the arduous rescue task, even if it meant sacrificing his own life. Stephen Lipscomb began his mining career in 2006, working alongside his brother Joseph, according to his obituary. Steve built a distinguished career and earned the deep respect of his fellow miners, working his way up to becoming a foreman in 2015. Lipscomb's awards include the Global War on Terrorism Service Medal, National Defense Service Medal, and the Sea Service Deployment Ribbon. He is survived by his wife, 2 daughters, aged 13 and 17, as well as a sister, a brother, and a sister-in-law. That's real sad. Yeah, really unfortunate. He's an absolute hero. And, actually, I don't think that was all I had. Yeah, I was gonna say, I thought I had more. That's the first time it's done that to me. All right, anyway, U.S. Department of Labor from 5 hours ago. The federal American education system has failed our students. While politicians and bureaucrats micromanaged education from D.C., American students experienced lower test scores and worse educational outcomes. Under the president's leadership, we're eliminating this failed bureaucracy and ensuring our students get the world-class education they deserve.
So almost 1 in 5, that's 18% of first-year students at UCSD this year could not pass Algebra 1. That's 8th grade math. The last I checked, that's 12, 13-year-old kids. And that's compared to just 6% of students who failed to meet the same benchmark back in 2020. We knew it was a problem then, and This is showing us just how bad it has gotten.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not great at math, but that's like, 3 times worse than it was just a few years ago. All right, Congressman Troy A. Carter. After Louisiana was the first in the nation to secure federal approval plans to deploy $1.3 billion in BEAD broadband deployment funding to connect hundreds of thousands of residents to high-speed internet, the Trump administration decided to scrap the plan and make us start over. While the state's new plan for infrastructure funds has finally been approved again, hundreds of millions of dollars for rural telehealth and workforce development in Louisiana are still in limbo, waiting for approval. In energy commerce, I supported Doris Matsui's amendment to block the American Broadband Deployment Act until the NTIA releases all $42 billion in BEAD funding to the states. NTIA must get this funding out the door because saying it's available and actually releasing it are two very different things. Louisiana is ready to put shovels in the ground and finally close the digital divide. $42 billion that they want to use to give, I guess, people out in rural areas high-speed internet, which I'm sure includes probably people who live way out in the middle of nowhere, miles away from civilization, and they're going to spend all this money to run fiber optic cabling or internet cabling miles just to probably get to one single property, and they're going to do that over and over, probably for thousands and thousands of properties, which is absolutely ridiculous because we have this thing called Starlink. Why don't they just hook them up to Starlink? It's already there. You don't have to have all these miles and like thousands of miles of cabling to connect everybody to the internet, which I find it baffling that there's $42 billion worth of people in this country that don't have high-speed internet today. But that's what Starlink is for. I think that's precisely the reason that they rolled it out. That's why it's even a thing. So people in remote areas where they can't reasonably access high-speed internet or have it run to their house, they could access Starlink from space, and it's high speed. So I don't understand why they don't just contract with Starlink. Oh, it's because Elon Musk, because Democrats hate Elon Musk now. So instead, they want to do it the old-fashioned way and spend $42 billion of our money to get high-speed internet out to just individuals' houses who live out in the middle of nowhere. At least that's my takeaway of it. So let's give this a watch.
Mr. Chairman, I move to strike the last word.
The gentleman is recognized for 5 minutes to speak on the amendment.
We're
I
in this
won't watch
committee
all of this.
today
Maybe a
considering
minute or so.
legislation to cut red tape, streamline requirements, and speed up connectivity projects. But the most significant delay in my home state of Louisiana has been the Trump administration's rewriting of policies for broadband deployment funds. I want to thank Ranking Member Matsui for offering her amendment, which will prevent the American Broadband Deployment Act from taking effect until the National Telecommunications and Information Administration has released all $42 billion in funding for the Broadband Equity and Access Deployment, or BEAD, program
Equity.
to states. This
Yeah,
would
that's not a
ensure that
culty word.
NTIA prioritizes
We need the
getting
equity
BEAD
and
funding
inclusion
out as soon as possible
for
to
high-speed
states,
internet.
including Louisiana, and prevent any further delays from this happening. In January of this year, Louisiana became the first state in the nation to secure federal funding for a plan to deploy $1.3 billion in BEAD funding. The state was ready to have shovel
Wait, how much was that?
$1.3 billion in BEAD
$1.3
funding.
billion.
The state was ready to have shovels in the ground in March. Louisiana's plan was completed under Republican Governor Jeff Landry, who called this program a generational investment that will create thousands of jobs, drive billions in economic growth, and transform Louisiana's communities in all 64 parishes.
Which, by the way, it's pretty easy to do the math, but let's say that there's 1 million people, which I highly doubt there's 1 million people in Louisiana who don't have high-speed internet. Let's say there's 1 million, and they're going to use $1.3 billion. That equates to $1,300 for each resident, for each person in Louisiana, just to have internet hooked up. They still have to pay for it monthly, I'm assuming. I mean, the taxpayers aren't going to pay for their monthly usage, I would assume. I'm guessing that this is just rolling out the infrastructure to get everybody connected to the internet, and then they're going to have to carry the weight on their own. So I think an argument to be made is, of these 1 million people, which I'm just pulling that number out of thin air, of those 1 million people who are going to be hooked up to high-speed internet or have the ability to hook up to it, how many are actually going to do it? It's the year 2025. If they haven't gotten high-speed internet, or at least haven't really tried up until now, I highly doubt that they're going to. I would just say the majority, but maybe the majority still will. But with that said, most people these days, not most, but there are a lot of people these days, they don't even have internet at their houses anymore because they just use 5G on their phone. They use their phone for all their internet. But maybe that's not most people, but I know there's a sizable amount of people who are.
Louisiana's original plan included, among other things, using $100 million non-deployment funds to improve access to telehealth in rural areas with limited nearby medical facilities. These funds would have been transformative for our state, especially now as the Republican big, ugly law will cause more rural hospitals and clinics to close.
Ew, it's ugly. I saw twigger.
Unfortunately, the Trump administration's overhaul of the BEAD program has upended these years of planning, forcing states like Louisiana to scrap their work and to start all over again. Due to the administration's
to pick up a
changes,
phone
the rural and
for
underserved
telehealth.
communities still waiting for reliable
Why does it cost
internet
$100 million,
will be
dude?
disproportionately
All you gotta do is pick up a
harmed.
phone.
These changes prioritize short-term cost savings and the interest of Elon Musk over durable, future-proof
big, bad, evil Elon
connectivity,
Musk.
leaving millions at risk of being locked into second-tier technologies.
So that's why he wants to take $1.3 billion. That would be $1,300 million to take that money and go the old-fashioned route and just dig trenches, thousands of miles of trenches to lay down internet cabling when we've already got thousands of satellites, tens of thousands of satellites sitting up there in the sky, ready to just rain down internet all over the state of Louisiana, and the infrastructure's already there. It's already there, but oh no, but fuck Elon Musk. We can't have that. Instead, we're going to take $1.3 billion and we're just going to hook up old school internet that most people aren't even going to probably use anyway.
Louisiana now faces new procedural
Fucking
hurdles
Democrats.
and will further delay broadband expansion, forcing the state to wait again for federal approvals and hope the administration doesn't move the goalposts for this program again. The status of the state's...
All right, whatever. We get the idea. I'm not sure most of us aren't in Louisiana anyway, so this isn't all that relevant, but it kind of is because it's our federal money. And what was the number that he gave out? Oh wait, it's actually in the description, isn't it? Oh no, 1.3 billion. I thought there was a bigger number than that, but yeah. Oh yeah, there it is. $42 billion. absolutely insanity that they're going to spend $42 billion to freaking roll out internet when, I know for the umpteenth time, Starlink. The fuck? And actually, I don't remember who else it is. I don't know if it was Jeff Bezos, but I thought there was another company out there that's working to be a competitor to Starlink, that they want to start sending up shitloads of satellites to compete with them. All right, let's move on. Senate Republicans, wrong. Senate Democrats are responsible for the lack of jobs data in October. So let's see what Senator Mazi Hirano says first. If the jobs report were actually good under this regime, we would never hear the end of it. But instead, the Bureau of Labor Statistics is publishing nothing. This regime is ruining our economy, and trying to hide it from the people it affects the most is you. BLS says it won't publish October jobs report because the government was shut down. Assholes. When the government shut down, they can't take statistics. They can't compile statistics. They can't run, or they can't catalog the statistics of the labor force because the government shut down. Everybody who were in those positions, I'm sure they're considered non-essential positions, and they were furloughed. Therefore, those numbers are probably never going to exist. There's always going to be an asterisk in that month because the government was shut down for the entirety of October. That's probably why we're not going to get the jobs report, which Republicans, I believe they were saying that all along. They're like, that's one of the million reasons why shutting down the government is an extremely stupid idea. So anyway, they said wrong. Senate Democrats are responsible for the lack of jobs data. The government was unable to perform many of its functions, including collecting jobs data, because of the Schumer shutdown. Senator Hirano voted 15 times to keep the government closed for 43 days, including the entire month of October. So there you go. More low IQ, gaslighting, and stupid propaganda. All right, Department of State, the previous administration's extreme DEI agenda imposed ideological litmus tests on government workers and robbed nearly 300 foreign service officers of promotion opportunities. Now, the State Department is rewarding merit and providing restitution to those unjustly impacted. And this will be found on Fox News. And Rubio orders restitution for hundreds of staffers denied promotions under Biden's DEI rule, which is so illegal. Marco Rubio's internal review finds 295 workers were denied promotions for not meeting diversity standards. I mean, how did they not have every single reason, every legal case or precedent under the sun to just sue the hell out of the federal government for this? Anyway, hundreds of State Department employees will receive restitution after an internal review under Secretary Marco Rubio found they were denied promotions under the Biden administration for not meeting new diversity, equity, and inclusion standards. Look, if I were one of those employees, at the very least, I would be talking to a lawyer. Like, I kind of don't want to take this restitution because I could probably get a hell of a lot more than that. Anyway, in addition to removing the diversity, equity, and inclusion and accessibility, DEIA precept from the State Department's promotion process, officials said roughly 295 employees who were marked down for not showing they would, quote, seek diversity in staffing, quote, will now receive pay increases, administrative promotions, and letters of commendation. Quote, the Trump administration is providing restitution to State Department employees who were adversely impacted by the previous administration's ideological agenda, a State Department official said. The department conducted an internal review of 7,319 employees who competed for promotion in 2024. Those employees were judged on 5 precepts: communication, leadership, management, knowledge, and DEIA. Under President Donald Trump, the DEIA precept was replaced with a new criterion: fidelity. Fox News Digital previously reported. Promotion board members were instructed to low-rank employees who exhibited a lack of sensitivity to the importance of diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility, according to a State Department official. The DEIA promotion precept was damaging to those who displayed, quote, little indication of seeking diversity in staffing, quote, the official claimed. The Biden administration imposed ideological litmus tests on civil servants, penalizing competent and deserving government employees in the process, Principal Deputy Spokesperson Tommy Pico said. I mean, could you imagine living underneath like absolute, like 100%, like totalitarian style Democrat Party rule? Imagine that like 20, 30 years in the future. Look, Hollywood has already showed us what it's going to look like. All you got to do is watch like Blade Runner 2049 or maybe the movie Looper or Judge Dredd, or I don't know, name your sci-fi dystopic movie. There's plenty of them. All right, under President Donald Trump and Secretary of State Marco Rubio, the State Department rewards excellence, which is the right thing to do for our workforce, for our country and for the American people. The Trump administration's restitution plan marks a broader rollback of DEI-based policies across federal agencies, part of Trump's pledge, yada, yada. So the State Department, their previous hiring guide, 22 to 25, required Foreign Service employees to demonstrate impact in diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility. Like, how the hell are you supposed to do that? How are you supposed to demonstrate? Hold your arms out. Like, this is what color I am. Do I get the job? Entry-level applicants were expected to proactively seek to improve one's self-awareness with respect to promoting inclusivity. Mid and senior level supervisors were told to recruit and retain diverse teams, respond immediately to non-inclusive workplace behaviors, and consult with impacted staff before finalizing decisions. So in addition to not giving these people promotions, how many people did they fire because, well, there's too many white people in this department, there's too many Asian people in this department? Let's see, how much more is this? Okay, so I'll finish this off. So on his first day in office in 2021, President Joe Biden signed an executive order directing federal agencies to pursue policies that advance equity, affirmatively advancing equity, civil rights, racial justice, and equal opportunity is the responsibility of the whole of our government, he said. It is therefore the policy of my administration that the federal government should pursue a comprehensive approach to advancing equity for all, including people of color and others who have been historically underserved, marginalized, and adversely affected by persistent poverty and inequality. And yeah, so Fox reached out to Biden's office for comment. Of course, they're not going to get any because, Biden is, doing what Biden does best, probably sleeping damn near 24/7. Not that he would, comment directly, of course. Okay, from the White House, quote, "The friendship and blessings to America, to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, and to the world stand out and will always stand out to me. We have an expression, make America great again, and that's what we're doing. I want to thank you for being a very big part of it," from President Trump.
It is indeed my honor to welcome to the White House a great friend and a man of leadership, vision, courage, and strength, His Royal Highness Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. We've gotten to know each other well over the years, and he has become a true partner for peace and prosperity for our countries and for the world and for peace in the Middle East, which was a crowning achievement for both of us. Our countries have been enduring partners, and together this evening, we're making that partnership closer and stronger than ever before, and we have a very different Middle East than we had when I first came into office. As I saw during my wonderful visit to the kingdom in May,
Dude's always so happy to see Trump.
Announced that it will invest an incredible
I think he's always been a big Trump fan. Just like Kim Jong-un. Kim Jong-un's a big Trump fan.
And he said, I am going to up that to $1 trillion. So he's investing $1 trillion into the United States. This week, we're also signing exciting agreements on civil nuclear energy, critical minerals, and artificial intelligence. And as we announced in May, Saudi Arabia is also making an enormous commitment to building up its own defense capabilities with the largest arms purchase in history, nearly $142 billion worth of American military equipment and services. Tonight, I'm pleased to announce
a lot of equipment going to the Middle East.
Military cooperation to even greater heights by formally designating Saudi Arabia as a major non-NATO ally. I want to thank the Crown Prince for the role he played in the transformational peace deal that was achieved last month. Our friendship and blessings to America, to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, and to the world stand out and will always stand out to me. We have an expression, make America great again, and that's what we're doing beyond what anyone even thought possible. So I just want to thank you for being a very big part of it. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Well, there you go. That was the summary of the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, his visit to the White House. No, we don't have to watch that again. Okay, so just moving on to U.S. Department of Energy. Secretary Wright on the U.S. and KSA civil nuclear deal. Quote, "This is for civil nuclear cooperation of a power plant. American technology, American companies to build a very large nuclear power plant in Saudi Arabia. Historic win for American energy."
Yesterday, when President Trump announced an official partnership with the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia to work on civil nuclear energy, the two nations taking that first big step towards what they say will ultimately be a $1 trillion partnership down the road. Here to talk about it is Energy Secretary Chris Wright. Mr. Secretary, thanks for taking time with us today. As I understand it, the big kind of goal here for the United States is that at some point in the future, American companies will be able to actually build nuclear reactors inside Saudi Arabia. Is that right?
Yes. Saudis had an interest in civil nuclear technology for many years, but we just haven't concluded an agreement with them. It was attempted during the Biden administration, but you just didn't have the real trusting relations there. But yeah, I think that's something coming soon.
There are concerns about the Saudis have long wanted to, enrich uranium domestically. There are concerns about that because it can be used for either civilian or military purposes. Is that something that is going to be addressed in this agreement?
No enrichment in this agreement. This is just for civil nuclear construction of a power plant, American technology, American companies, to build a very large nuclear power plant in Saudi Arabia. In summertime, during peak demand, they're burning oil to generate that extra electricity. That's a high-value fuel that's better they export to the rest of the world and generate electricity domestically from natural gas and from nuclear power. Same two biggest electricity sources as in the United States today. They just want to add that second nuclear power to their grid.
I mean, seems to make sense. I would assume that nuclear power would be relatively stable in Saudi Arabia, at least as far as potential natural disasters go. All right, U.S. Department of Labor, the president of the American worker. Rapid Response 47, 1.9 million more American-born workers are employed today than when I took office, says the president. Under Biden, 1 out of every 4 new jobs went to increase the size of the federal government. Yeah, there's no doubt about that, I'm sure. Under my administration, 100% of all new jobs created came out of the private sector.
1.9 million more American-born workers are employed today. Think of that. Than when I took office. So we picked up almost 2 million workers, and more Americans are now working, as I said, than at any time in the history of our country under Biden.
Well, not to mention the insane number of factories that are being constructed, the money that was invested. I mean, just pointing out Apple alone, $600 billion going into, I don't know if all of it's going to manufacturing, but a lot of it is. Toyota, they just announced just the other day, they're investing like $930 million into building manufacturing, I think, for hybrid vehicles in the United States. All kind, like GE, they did the same thing. They're going to start manufacturing, I think it was washing machines or something like that. Tons of companies, and they haven't even built those things. They haven't even built all those factories yet. So I'm sure the jobs numbers he's talking about are existing ones that have started or that have rolled out this year. Not to mention the up to the number he throws out is $17 trillion worth of investing in the United States. So there's a lot of jobs to be had in the coming years.
1 out of every 4 new jobs went to increase the size of the federal government. So in other words, 1 out of 4 was a federal worker. Well, I love our federal workers, but that's not the way you can build a country.
We got to downsize government. Don't build it. Build it up.
Under my administration, 100%, think of that, of all new jobs created came out of the private sector.
That's a very good thing. Definitely a very good thing, and something he ran on. Ran on shrinking the side of the government, not building it up bigger. All right, Fox and Friends, bringing civility back to the skies. Transportation Secretary Duffy opens up to Cheryl Casson about efforts to make air travel more pleasant.
If you've flown in the last few years, you've likely seen it. Bad behavior, passengers punching computers at gates, assaulting gate agents.
I've seen a lot of it on the internet.
Not leaving the gate because a passenger has come bad over, sometimes worse. These
That's
viral
fucking
videos
insane.
get millions of clicks, but the situation has not gotten any better, and it's something that Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy has been keenly aware of, and he's ready to address it. Here he is exclusively telling Fox Business why this has to change now. Watch. It's gotten more and more stressful to fly, more security. Now you've got people are worried
More
about
people
their
on
safety.
edge.
But this is
A lot of
something
people are
that you
broke
really
these
wanna
days,
see
but
change.
So I've asked people
they insist
for
on
feedback.
traveling
What
anyway.
happens at the gate, and again, are people nice to the gate agents? What happens with some of the brawls we've seen at baggage claim? People behaving well on the airplane. Be nice. Say please. Say thank you. Bringing civility back, I think, enhances the travel experience for everybody. And so sometimes you just have to ask people, hey, let's maybe go back to an era where we didn't wear our pajamas to the airport. We actually might dress up a little bit. And if someone needs help putting their luggage up in the overhead bin, help them out.
Yeah, that would sure be nice if we had that. I don't know how you go about forcing that, but obviously encouraging it. I mean, that's the way it's always should have been. But yeah, man, people are just getting more rude, getting, just worse as a society. All right. U.S. Census Bureau, a larger share of women had their first child while living with an unmarried partner in the early 2020s than in the early 1990s, according to our new report. Learn more about women's living arrangements at the time of their first birth. Again, I don't remember if I mentioned this. U.S. Census Bureau, that's where this is coming from. And it's on census.gov /newsrooms, so on. Women's living arrangements at first birth, November 19th, published today. A larger share of women had their first child while living with an unmarried partner in the early 2020s, the 90s. And that is on women's living arrangements at first birth report released today by U.S. Census Bureau. So this is the actual report itself. Okay, yeah, so... Well, here, I wonder if it'd just be more beneficial just to read the introduction of the report than read this. Anyway, I already started here, so I'll link both of them. The report describes women's living arrangements, i.e. married, cohabiting, neither married nor cohabiting at the time of their first birth, and how they differ by educational attainment, race, and ethnicity from the early 1990s to the early 2020s. The report also found a lower percentage of women had their first child while neither married nor living with a partner in 2020 through 24 than they did in 1990 through 94. The percentage of first-time mothers with at least a bachelor's degree who were married increased from 74.4% to 84.5%, and it's during the same time period. In 2020 through 24, only 4.4% of first-time mothers with a bachelor's degree were neither married nor living with a partner, which dropped from 14.4% back in the 90s. The percentage of first-time mothers with less than a bachelor's degree who were married declined from 58% down to 40%, a big decline. Cohabitation at first birth rose from 19.2% in 1990 to 94 to 34.8% in 2020 through 24. And then they break it down by race and ethnicity. And yeah, so there you have it from the Census Bureau. I came across it. I don't really see a whole lot that the Census Bureau puts out. And I believe that account was shut down during the government shutdown. So if I come across anything in the future that's, I don't know, worth bringing up, then maybe I'll talk about it. So this is from HHS, and the HHS commissioned a diverse group of authors to engage in the most comprehensive study to date at the treatment of children and adolescents for gender dysphoria. The findings in the peer-reviewed report are clear. Sex-rejecting procedures for children are dangerous. And I did a video on this earlier today, so if you want to check that out on my channel, I believe it's actually the video before this one. And I go into more detail. I ended up pulling up 4 different articles talking about this exact topic. And how they did a study on it. And I think it was 10 different individuals and organizations weighed in on it. And they determined that, there's virtually no data, no actual evidence to back up the fact that that gender-affirming care is in any way helpful for adolescents, teenagers, and children at all. All right, PNSN. So who is PNSN? The Pacific Northwest Seismic Network, another government agency. Some false reports are circulating that Mount Rainier is suddenly showing seismic tremor activity. This is not true. The signal being referenced is actually radio interference, most likely due to rime ice buildup on the antenna of one of our seismic stations. You think? I wonder if that might be the reason. That looks like a CCTV camera, like completely blocked out by the ice and the snow. Damn. So yeah, that might be a reason why it's given false readings for seismic activity on Mount Rainier. Got a shitload of snow, man. And wind. A lot of wind and snow. And the FRA, America is building again. The work continues. The construction on Howard Street Tunnel in Maryland will help CSX bring efficiency to this important intermodal hub. And they've got a video clip here, just real quick, 15 seconds. Doesn't look like any sound. Not sure why they didn't put any sound there, but looks like they're building those tracks by section. They're not doing it by hand like they did in the olden days. Yeah, so they're laying them down section by section. All right, well, if you live in the area, they're hard at work. I don't know if they ceased the operations during the shutdown or not, but I mean they're working on it now. At least it appears that they are. All right, Senate Republicans, our working families tax cut takes effect in 2026. See how much you and your family will save. Well, don't mind if I do. I haven't actually looked at this. So I'm not sure if they make it easy or if they just give just brackets or what, but let's take a look here. So the year, show tax provisions. Okay, so here we go. State average tax changes per filer per state under the One Big Beautiful Bill. Tax changes from 2026 to 2035. And so they've got it by state. Okay, so it actually does extend all the way out. All right, so which column's which? So 2026, 27. And, okay, so per filer per state. And for my state, oh, man, it's going to be $5,000. That's nice. And this is on average, I believe, right? Yeah, the state average tax changes. So the average person, at least in my state, they're going to save $5,000, and we've got it state by state. And yeah, so there you go. Which, of course, I'm going to link this also if you want to take a look at that. And we'll head down to the next thing from NASA. We just released the latest images of the interstellar comet 3I Atlas, as observed by 8 different spacecraft, satellites, and telescopes. Here's what we learned about the comet and how we're studying it across the solar system. It's really cool how they've been tracking this. So this is a comet that came from somewhere out in interstellar space, doesn't belong to the solar system. It's just flying through the solar system, and then it's just heading right through. It's coming in from one end, and it's just leaving out the other end of the solar system. It's just going to keep on traveling. And they believe that this object, this is the image of it. They believe that this object is potentially older than the sun itself. One of the numbers that I heard was that they have it pinned at possibly like 6 or 7 billion years old. And it's just been an object that's just been floating out in space, just traveling in space. And it just so happens to be moving through the solar system right now. And I think it was like close to 100,000 miles an hour, or kilometers an hour. It's extremely fast. And, yeah, it's only the third interstellar object, which is why they give it the designation 3I. It's only the third interstellar object that they've discovered ever. And with regard to like the satellites, the different spacecraft, so they've got spacecrafts all over the solar system. They've got them around Mars. They got them around Jupiter. I think Juno is still up there in Jupiter. So we've got different instruments that are all throughout the solar system, and wherever this comet was traveling in the solar system, if it was near any of our instruments that are orbiting other planets, they actually turn the instruments around to take a picture of it. I think James Webb, the James Webb Space Telescope, which is behind the moon, it took a picture of this object also. So we've got an article with regard to this, and it's technically swamp related. NASA, it is a government agency. It is a federal agency. So let's see. Let me see if they have anything else. Okay, so this is an animated image of it. That video shows the 3I Atlas interstellar comet as a bright fuzzy orb in the center, of course, traveling through the solar system at 130,000 miles per hour. Extremely fast, made visible by using a series of stacked images from September 11th through September 25th. Let's see. Okay, so Stereo A, I'm not sure where that's at. It's a spacecraft that took these images. I wish it said where it was. I'm not familiar with the Stereo A. Solar Terrestrial Relations Observatory spacecraft. So probably orbiting the sun, I would think, because it's a solar spacecraft. Anyway, they got more images there. Okay, so let me go back because I got another post. Live, seeing the latest images of Comet 3I Atlas, the third object we've ever seen passing through our solar system from elsewhere in the galaxy. We're sharing what we know about this visiting comet, how we're studying it, and what we can learn from it. It's long. It was live at the time when they posted this. So I'm not interested in looking or listening to all of. I just want to see what the images are that they've got, if I can locate any. All right, so here's the first one I came across, which was already on the other article, and then there's another image of it. So it's not going to be all that impressive, to be honest. So speed relative to Mars, Comet 3I Atlas, looks like hydrogen, a hydrogen plume. Let's see, Mars hydrogen, like the silt. Okay, there's another image of it. And I'm not sure if they have any more, if that's all they got. Just a lot of conversations just discussing the importance of 3i Atlas. So I will repost that if you want to take a look at that. Again, link to my profiles in the description. You can go straight to NASA. I'm sure they post stuff constantly, so you might have to scroll a while before you get to this specific post, but they posted it at exactly 3 o'clock p.m. today. And then we'll just roll on to the next one. NASA, oh wait, yeah, okay, so this is the next one. So NASA Acting Administrator Sean Duffy, NASA and Lockheed Martin's X-59 recently lifted off for the first time, reaching a major step toward quiet supersonic flight to the United States. Catch some of the moments of this breakthrough flight. Dude, this aircraft looks nuts, man. This thing looks wild. It comes to a very sharp point.
We've just received takeoff checks and takeoff briefing.
Look at this thing. That's freaking wild, man.
Verbal from the leads, starting over here with Zeus. Zeus, go for takeoff.
Zeus.
ECS, go. Fuel is go. Prop go. BMS go. Air data go. F2 go. Avionics go. Flutter go. Hydro go. Flags go. Loads go. SR go. TD go. Control copies all. X-59 control is
the
go
X-59.
for takeoff.
Not sure what its real world use is going to be. Maybe a spy plane. I don't know. Or if it's only just being used to see how fast they can fly. Just put your landing gear up. God, that thing looks weird, man. Looks wild. Just doing the test flight. I think obviously they didn't push it to its maximum potential. Damn, dude, that thing looks huge. That's somebody sitting in the cockpit. Yeah, there was somebody in the cockpit. Maybe some tradition they do, like NASA trying to keep the ice bucket challenge alive. All right. So Senator Dave McCormick, on the 162nd anniversary of Lincoln's Gettysburg Address, we honor the sacrifices made on the battlefield and continue to uphold the ideals of liberty. May we keep America true to the values that have long defined its greatness. And this will be the last thing that I got.
It's the 162nd anniversary of Lincoln's famous Gettysburg Address. 52,000 men died, wounded, or missing as a result of what happened over several days here. One of the most horrific battles in American history. And what Lincoln talked about was the need to fight for liberty and freedom, all that America was based on, and that the sacrifices here shouldn't be in vain, but should be in pursuit of maintaining the greatness of America. This is also such an important day because we're in the midst of the 250th anniversary of America next year. And it's an opportunity to remember all that has been necessary to fight to both create and keep America dear, and that's what we remember today. These national treasures are so important for the next generation of America and the next generation after that to understand the kind of leadership shown by Lincoln, the kind of sacrifice shown by the soldiers on the battlefield here is required. That's what's required to create America and to ensure America, a country based on the pursuit of liberty and freedom, remains true to its values.
All right, very cool. The Gettysburg Address. All right. And that's going to do it for this Wednesday episode. And if you enjoyed the video, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. It would mean a lot to me if you subscribe. And I'll drop a new show every evening, Monday through Friday, covering the swamp and everyone living in it. And I also post daily episodes on X, so feel free to comment there too if you'd like. And thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a great rest of your night, and God bless America.